Chapter 302, A New Beginning. Boom. More than 10 sonic lightning walnut exploded at the same time. A blinding and scorching light passed through his back. Zhuo felt his back was heavily struck. His throat turned sweet and then he spat out blood. Before he had the time to respond, like a meteorite falling from the sky, he and the female Xiao smashed heavily into the dirt. Ping! The ground was really hard. That was the last thought before Zhuo fainted. Ma Fan looked at the half-collapsed city walls. Thinking about the scene from 2 days ago, he still felt fear. The big formation inside Golden Crow City had been completely damaged, and almost all of the formation battle watchtowers were ruined. Most importantly, Boss had thrown out a huge number of sonic lightning walnuts to save everybody. The simultaneous explosion of the sonic lightning walnuts had forcibly cleared out an empty area 20 mu in diameter. The mountains around Golden Crow City did not have such good luck and had been bombarded and left half standing. Not one mountain peak remained whole. There was no untouched land near Golden Crow City. Everything was in disarray. In the sky, it was possible to see Xiuzha from Vermilion Bird Camp patrolling everywhere. After the battle, some Xiuzha had nefarious aims, and wanted to get rich. They were completely annihilated by the members of Vermilion Bird Camp, who had a whole belly full of frustration. In the defense of the city, Vermilion Bird Camp's utility had been pitifully small. This made them feel especially irritated. They had almost all died, and were even unable to take Boss and escape. To the Vermilion Bird Camp that had been trained through many battles and successfully won, this undoubtedly was a great humiliation. No one had expected that, in the end, Boss had saved everyone. Thinking about it now, it still seemed like a dream. There was not much joy on Ma Fan's face. Boss was still unconscious now. This caused a heavy cloud to settle on everyone's hearts. In this present group, Boss was the true leader. No one could imagine what they would become if Boss wasn't present. Maybe this group that had been so difficult to gather together would face a fate of collapse. Ma Fan chewed on a stalk of green grass as his feet unconsciously kicked pebbles. Old Fan, old Fan. His ears suddenly heard Xia Shan's joyous voice. Oh. He turned his face and dazedly responded. Xia Shan said urgently, Boss woke up. It was as though Ma Fan was struck by lightning. After a moment, he suddenly reacted, and asked hurriedly, Boss woke up. He just woke up. It was just my turn to stand guard. Xia Shan said with slight pride. That's great. Ma Fan muttered to himself. Isn't it? This is great. The news that Zhuo woke up quickly spread through Golden Crow City. Golden Crow City rejoiced, the gloom of the past days swept away. Zhuo felt his body hurt all over as though it was being torn apart. He couldn't help but give a deep groan. Looking at the familiar faces, joy at surviving the calamity washed over his heart. His expression suddenly changed and asked Gong Sun Cha, where's the female Xiao? Gong Sun Cha's expression became strange. How is she? Zhuo was very alarmed. Even though he did not know the actual situation, but there definitely was a great connection between him and the female Xiao. The scene of the female Xiao sacrificing herself to save him, and that pair of eyes filled with emotion flashed in front of his eyes. Who are you? Zhuo could find the answer to many of the problems haunting him on her body. She could not die. Seeing Zhuo's panic, Gong Sun Cha did not joke and revealed, come and you'll understand. When Zhuo saw the female Xiao, he was dumbstruck. The female Xiao silently sat in the corner of the room, and didn't seem to notice the existence of the two of them. Her cultivation, Zhuo asked in a trembling voice. Gong Sun Cha shook his head. She woke up before you did, but for some reason, her cultivation disappeared. Zhuo's heart suddenly sank. He silently walked in front of the female Xiao. When he saw the female Xiao's empty eyes, his heart couldn't help but shake, and his nose felt sore. That pair of clear and joyous eyes. She sat silently. When Zuemo walked in front of her, she did not seem to detect it. Zuemo reached out and waved a hand in front of her. She still did not respond. Inspect her body, Pu Yao's voice suddenly sounded. He was quite stern. Zuemo tightly pressed together his lips, reached out a hand and placed it on her body. She was motionless like a wooden puppet. Zuemo's expression changed. The channels inside her body had all broke, the strange purple power had disappeared to leave behind an extremely minuscule thread of life as though it was a candle flickering in the wind, that could be extinguished at any time. He couldn't even feel her soul. Why was it like this? Zuemo's mind rang and blanked. After a long time, he refocused. Looking at the female Shio's hideous and wooden face, especially when his gaze landed on the empty pupils, a certain chord in his heart was gently plucked. The confused gaze suddenly became determined. He entered the sea of consciousness and looked at Pu Yao. Pu Yao glanced at him and said, "I know what you want to ask. Truthfully, it's very difficult." Pu Yao's voice was deep and solemn without any of the mockery it usually held. Zuemo's expression was serious. "Tell me." Pu Yao did not raise any conditions. He looked at Zuemo, and threw a ball of light with formation scripts floating on the surface. He said, "This is adversity overcoming scripture. I got it from a Diana show. Maybe it can be of use." Zuemo's mind jumped and he hurriedly took the light ball. "Don't be happy prematurely. This scripture can only support this thread of life remaining in her body." Pu Yao said heavily, "If you want to save her, the best method is to get a water cloud embryo." Water cloud embryo? Zuemo asked curiously. He hadn't ever heard this name before. Water cloud embryo can nurture souls, and is the best for soul injuries. Soul injuries? Her secret technique is very strange. It burns the soul to create great power. Pu Yao's expression was grave. It is the first time I have seen such a strange secret skill. Her origins, I'm afraid, are not simple. When he finished, Pu Yao looked at Zuemo. He felt somewhat strange inside. Zuemo probably wasn't simple himself since he had a connection with such a complex female show. However, he had never seen uncommon qualities in Zuemo. Pu Yao gathered his thoughts and continued, "She should have definitely died this time, but fortunately, she had left a soul thought inside your body." Zuemo's voice shocked and he interrupted, "She has a soul thought inside my body? Her soul thought is inside that 5-element glass bead in your body." Pu Yao secretly celebrated that he had not crushed that bead. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome now. 5-element glass bead, Zuemo murmured to himself. When your cultivation reaches a certain level, you can see some of the mysteries inside, Pu Yao said. This 5-element glass bead is a very rare treasure. Zuemo's hand unconsciously balled into a fist. He was suddenly filled with motivation. For a long time, he had lacked a clear goal, including his time at Wukong Mountain. Long days of low-level living had caused his expectations of life to be very low. When his most basic needs were fulfilled, he had been lost. The unexpected encounter between him and the female show now seemed like fate. He knew the female show definitely was very important to him. How important would the connection be that the other would place a soul thought inside his body? He could not think of it, but he knew that no one other than the female show could do this. Just this was enough. Leaving the sea of consciousness, he looked at the female show. Her disfigured and wooden face could not cause any revulsion in him now. Suddenly, he thought of his past zombie face, and laughed. The fate of the zombie and female ghost? In the future, you will be a Gue. The female show was unmoved. Adversity overcoming scripture was extremely cryptic and complex. The main reason was that Zuemo didn't know much about many of the things of Diana show. Pu Yao did not know much about Diana show either. According to him, he had taken this from the body of a Diana show he killed. Luckily, Zuemo had Zhong Ru, who was a much more orthodox Diana show, to help him resolve many of the parts. Pu Yao's judgment was correct. Adversity overcoming scripture, was able to help Agues stabilize the thread of life. Under the Buddha mantra, the deathly presence on Agues' body dissipated greatly. Zhuo Mo was very encouraged and worked even harder. After a few days, Gongsun Cha led a female Xiao to Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo looked with puzzlement at Gongsun Cha. "Shitty, this is Miss Rongwei." Gongsun Cha first made introductions and then said, "She hopes to work with us." "With us?" Zhuo Mo stilled. Rongwei bowed and said, "This one is from Sky Water Jie's House of the Crow Marquis and has been ordered to come to Little Mountain Jie to investigate stars in daytime. This one asks Darren for your aid." She then took out a few talismans. "A small token of our intentions, please accept them." Stars in daytime? Zhuo Mo's heart jumped. Damn it, stars in daytime, wasn't that caused by him? What were the origins of this Crow Marquis house? Why were they investigating him? His heart instantly became wary. He pretended to be confused and asked, "We did see the stars in daytime, but what does this apparition mean? Miss Rongwei, please teach us." "This one does dare to teach." Rongwei bowed slightly. "The old records say that when stars in daytime appear, there are Great Yao and Great Mo healing." Great Yao and Great Mo? Zhuo Mo's heart jumped again. He finally understood. It seemed he needed to be careful in the future. If this appeared a few more times, he would be in danger. "And, the Marquis believes Great Yao may have infiltrated Little Mountain Jie," Rongwei said. This was the most probable guess. A Yao army had appeared in Little Mountain Jie, and now a Great Yao, that wasn't too much of a surprise. But what was there in Little Mountain Jie that made the Yao put so much effort and even be injured? Zhuo Mo secretly released a breath inside. He hurriedly shook his head. "Miss Rong is joking. We aren't enough if a Yao army comes, much less a Great Yao. We plan on immediately leaving Little Mountain Jie to go to Sky Water Jie. Your house resides in Sky Water Jie, and we are unfamiliar with the area. At that time, please guide us." Rongwei was slightly disappointed, but she had expected this. Unless there was a special order, no one was willing to stay for long in Little Mountain Jie. She had come this time with the intentions of making acquaintances. The power of Golden Crow City, even if they entered Sky Water Jie, would definitely be a significant force. There were no disadvantages to forming good relationship now. Before, she had the idea of recruiting Gongsun Cha, but after personally seeing the battle that day, her thought had instantly disappeared. This kind of person was not someone she could recruit. Fortunately, the aim of her visit this time had been realized. She smiled slightly and took out a jade card to hand to Zhuo Mo. "This one still has duties, and cannot accompany everyone. It is very regretful. If you have any problem, you can take this card to travel to the House of the Crow Marquis. The Marquis would definitely welcome everyone." The two sides chatted a bit more before Rongwei left. "We are going to Sky Water Jie?" Gongsun Cha suddenly asked. One friendly reminder from Wandering Yumi of Doom. During the first few interactions between Pooh and Zhuo Mo angered Pooh to the point Pooh was going to kill him. The bead attempted to intervene and save Zhuo Mo. Pooh intended to destroy the bead, but the gravestone stopped him. Chapter 303, Leaving Little Mountain Jie. "We need to leave this place quickly," Zhuo Mo said decisively. "Little Mountain Jie isn't a safe place." "When are we leaving?" Gongsun Cha then asked. "Get everyone to pack, then prepare for departure. Let them prepare well. When we pass through the Clear Sky sect, there may be a hard battle." "All right." Gongsun Cha instantly went out to prepare. Everyone in Golden Crow City started to move. Zhuo Mo released all of the outer hall captives. Clear Sky Old Forefather had been killed, which was a fatal blow to the outer hall Shouja. At this point, no one would be willing to sell their life for Clear Sky sect. The Battle of Golden Crow City had shaken Little Mountain Jie. Right now, Everyone knew that the sky had changed for little mountain Jie and no one was willing to stay in this cage. In the span of a few days, almost all of the remaining Xiuzha from Little Mountain Jie had gathered outside Golden Crow City. They looked with awe at this little town of which only remained half standing. Everyone knew this place held the hope to leave Little Mountain Jie. No one made trouble, they only watched from a distance. When Vermilion Bird Camp's patrols passed, many people bowed of their own initiative. From a distance, there was a spectacularly dense patch of Xiuzha outside Golden Crow City. Will there be trouble? Nian Lu asked worriedly. Who's afraid? Lei Peng was unconcerned. We can kill as many of these as they come. Ha, that's true. Pride flashed across Nian Lu's face. Before, who could have thought there would be a day like this? It's worth it even if I die. Lei Peng rumbled, I don't want to die. Boss still has so much good stuff. Maybe we can cultivate to Jindan in the future. You really dare to think, Nian Lu looked into the distance. Suddenly the order to gather came from below. The two exchanged a look. They were going to depart. The Little Mountain Jie Xiuzha who had been keeping a constant eye on Golden Crow City shifted. After a short while, Vermilion Bird Camp was the first to ascend into the air. The Vermilion Bird Camp of more than 700 people was famed in Little Mountain Jie. When Vermilion Bird Camp collectively flew into the air, many of the people watching from afar sighed with admiration. Look! That's Vermilion Bird Camp. The strongest army of Little Mountain Jie. Whoa! That presence is really frightening. I wonder if they are still hiring. Death would be worth it if I could enter such a troop. Chatter rose among the crowd. People were filled with admiration and awe as they looked at this powerful troop. No one dared to underestimate them, even if there were only 700 people. Vermilion Bird Camp quickly spread out after getting up into the air. They were wary and cautious. Following them were the 5 gigantic slave transporting boats that slowly rose. There were 1,000 black armor camp guards standing on the lead slave transport ship. That was Guard Camp who became famous in one battle. They were not skilled in flying. The enormous and steady slave transporting boats were perfect for them. The pressure of 1,000 camp guards standing on the deck gave people was unparalleled. The appearance of Guard Camp caused a small crescendo of murmuring. The Xiuzha that had personally seen the heart-shaking battle described the terrifying strength of Guard Camp to the others. The ferocious killing energy and the ancient battle armor that they wore, which had long disappeared into the river of history, became the topics that interested the people the most. The other 4 slave transporting boats were used for the Eastern Camp, Western Camp and non-combat Xiuzha. And the last boat was filled with all kinds of materials. Slave transporting boats were enormous. In Little Mountain Jie, 5 slave transporting boats definitely counted as a gigantic fleet. Adding on Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp, this definitely was the strongest fleet of Little Mountain Jie. Zuo looked at Golden Crow City below and was filled with emotion. It just had been a few short days, but Golden Crow City had completely transformed. It was broken and shattered. Possibly in the future, this place would become ruins of an ancient city. He raised his head and looked at the sky filled with Xiuzha in a dense cloud that did not end. He couldn't help but sigh again. After this departure, Little Mountain Jie would become a dead Jie without any people. Maybe this place would become the front lines like Bloody Sky Metropolis Jie had previously been, a paradise of Yamo. Oh, he really had no standing to sigh. Thinking about Pu Yao in his sea of consciousness, Zuo grimaced. However, they could finally leave this place. He looked at Ague beside him. Ague was sitting silently. He turned his face and said to Gongsun Cha, "Depart." The 5 slave transporting boats slowly started to fly forward. Many people looked back at Golden Crow City, their eyes filled with reluctance. This little city had given them hope and sunlight. This little city would become a place they would reminiscence for their entire life. The vast troop flew towards the Jie River towards Sky Water Jie. Along the way, there was a constant stream of Shouja merging with their convoy. The troop became even larger. Each person's face was filled with excitement and exhilaration. They looked with awe at the figure standing on the deck of the lead slave transport ship. There was no light coming from the Ling armor, the not-so-broad figure did not have a grand presence. This normal-looking youth that was outrageously young gave them hope and led them to escape this cage. Not far from their troop, a troop of Yao soldiers watched as they left. "Darren, are we not pursuing them?" "No, we are too exhausted. But, the order from the Council of Elders is to take Little Mountain Jia at the fastest speed possible, not to do anything else." Rong Wei entered this convoy along the way. Personally seeing this scene, she sighed inside. After this hard battle, the master of Golden Crow City had become the true king of Little Mountain Jia. If he sent down an order right now, there definitely would be many people willing to sell their life for him. In the remaining Shouja of Little Mountain Jia, there was not another person that could be spoken of in the same terms as him. The Shouja from Little Mountain Jia had all chosen to leave. Her mission did not have much meaning then. She didn't think that she could investigate and find something in Little Mountain Jia with just the handful of compound guards she had come with. The best choice right now was to leave with the Master of Golden Crow City. She held a high opinion of the Master of Golden Crow City. With the group of people under his command, the Master of Golden Crow City would be invincible wherever he went. From the battle, she had seen how powerful the Master of Golden Crow City was. It was a profitable matter to give someone friendship when they were in their most difficult straits. "Good day, City Master." Rong Wei went over and bowed. With a smile, she said, "We will be traveling with you." Zhuo Mo smiled. "Miss Rong is too courteous." As he finished, he had his people make room. Rong Wei was not courteous and stepped onto the slave transporting boat. The compound guards all held their head and chests high, and shared in the glory. "What does City Master plan to do for the future?" Rong Wei tilted her head and asked. "We'll plan each step when we get there." Zhuo Mo was very wary of this female Xiao that was investigating stars in daytime. Sky Water Jia isn't a bad place. City Master could consider it, Rong Wei said. Zhuo Mo shook his head. "Too dangerous, the Yao army can enter Little Mountain Jia at any time. Sky Water Jia is this close to Little Mountain Jia, it is slightly dangerous." Rong Wei stilled. Upon further thought, she instantly stopped speaking. The other's words were very reasonable. She considered whether or not she should urge the Marquis to move the house of the Crow Marquis to a place further away when she returned. Pu Yao suddenly spoke up inside Zhuo Mo's mind, "Ask her if she has a Jia map." Hearing this, Zhuo Mo's mind moved. He asked Rong Wei, "Speaking of that, this one has something to request." "Oh, please speak," Rong Wei said cautiously. "This one's Jia map was lost, and wants to borrow and copy Miss Rong's Jia map," Zhuo Mo said without blushing or an increase in his heartbeat. Hearing this, Rong Wei's heart settled. She said, "No problem, but the markings on this one's Jia River are limited, and hope that City Master will not be too disappointed." Zhuo Mo hurriedly gave his thanks, took out a blank jade scroll and copied. After he finished, he gave the Jia map jade scroll back to the other and went back to his cabin after bidding farewell. Once he entered the boat cabin, he couldn't wait and took out the Jia map to examine. The Jia map was filled with the names of all the Jia and the Jia rivers connecting them. Zhuo Mo instantly felt his vision broaden. Only today did he discover the general location of Sky Moon Jia and Little Mountain Jia. Sky Moon Jia and Little Mountain Jia were at the corner of the entire Jia map. As expected, it was rural area. He smacked his lips and rubbed his chin as he read intensely, unaware that Pu Yao had also crowded next to him and was examining the Jia map. "Such a small Jia map," Pu Yao said with slightly disdain. "It's already a lot. There's more than 300 Jia labeled on here." 300 Jia is a lot. Pu Yao seemed to have heard a great joke. Country bumpkin. Zhuo Mo ignored him. It was the first time he saw a Jie map and he was very curious. The labels on the Jie map were very detailed. It even included the specialty products of each Jie. He read on with interest. Around the Jie map were large areas of blank space. Those were probably areas that had never been mapped before. He quickly discovered that there was no information on water cloud embryos on the Jie map. Pu, which Jie produces water cloud embryos? I don't know, Pu Yao said irritably. I'm not familiar with your Xiuzhe territories. Aren't you a Sky Yao? You don't even know this. Zhuemo egged him on. Pu Yao tilted his head and smirked coldly. I know of a place, but it is in a Yao Jie. You dare to go? Zhuemo instantly was speechless. It seemed he had to do a search when he got to Sky Water Jie. When the vast troop reached Clear Sky Sect's base, they found it was completely empty. Zhuemo, who had been expecting another hard battle, was very surprised. When they found out the Clear Sky Sect disciples had all run away, cheers rang out from the troop. Zhuemo did not doubt that if any Clear Sky Sect disciples' identity was revealed, and they encountered any Xiuzhe that escaped from Little Mountain Jie, they would die a terrible death. Every single one of the surviving Xiuzhe from Little Mountain Jie hated Clear Sky Sect to the bone. What Zhuemo felt was a pity was everything good in Clear Sky Sect had been cleaned out. He didn't stop there, followed the Jie River, and flew towards Sky Water Jie. When they arrived at the airspace above the Jie River, many of the Xiuzhe's tears uncontrollably flowed. They finally believed that they were going to leave this hell-like cage. They could finally return to the life they had been familiar with before. This made everyone excited. Cheers, sobs, venting roars. The sky above the Jie River was very busy. Zhuemo wasn't very excited. He looked at a Gui sitting silently beside him, his gaze determined. The other end of the Jie River was just a new beginning. Chapter 304, Great Day Mo Physique. The Jie Rivers were hard to cross. Every Jie River was very lengthy. Inside the cabin, Zhuemo was focused on cultivation. Golden core. My golden core. Once Pu Yao spoke of the Jindan, he started to become irritable. Fought a Jindan and almost lost your little life, and you didn't get me the golden core. Zhuemo was slightly embarrassed. Before, he had promised to give a Jindan to Pu Yao, but that was unfulfilled. Thinking about it now, Jindan were not as terrifying as he imagined. As long as he had the right method, it was possible to defeat a Jindan. After careful thought, the strongest quality of a Jindan was their speed. This caused Jindan to have the absolute advantage when facing Ningmai Xiuzhe. For a powerful Jindan to kill with a strike was not uncommon, but it was not possible for one strike to kill 10 Ningmai. In comparison, a Jindan's defensive advantage was the least eye-catching. Even though the sword energies of a single Ningmai could not seriously wound them, but if dozens of sword energies struck at the same time, even a Jindan could not bear it. What was most scary was if the Jindan decided to kill everyone at the expense of their life. If a Jindan decided to go all out, the power they could release was multiple times what it was normally. Experience was the most valuable. With the experience from last time, if he had to fight with Clear Sky Old Forefather again, he even had the confidence to kill Clear Sky Old Forefather with just Vermilion Bird Camp. Facing Pu Yao's mockery and scorn, he could only grimace inside. The reason the battle against Clear Sky Old Forefather had been so difficult was because he had been frightened by the connotations of a Jindan Xiuzhe. Now he knew that being on the defense would cause him to become even more reactive when facing a Jindan Xiuzhe. Pu Yao clearly knew this. At this point, his wailing was just to satisfy his mouth. Hearing Pu Yao natter at his ears, Zhuemo really could not bear it any longer. He stopped his cultivation. All right. I'll make it up to you. He then muttered, an honored Sky Yao is actually, Pu Yao pretended not to hear. After a while, he could resist tempting Zhuemo. Actually, Jindan are very easy to kill. You didn't have the abilities before, but it is different now. Look, you have so many people under your command, And you also made a breakthrough? Zhuo Mo's mind jumped. Let's talk more about this. It's strange now that you speak of it. Your talent in the consciousness and Ling power doesn't seem outstanding, but you are abnormally fast in cultivating the MO skills. It really is weird. Pu Yao was slightly discontent, but still said, you still remember your MO physique? Of course, Jade Metal Head. Ranked 5th in the captain's stage, Zhuo Mo answered. Exactly. At the beginning, I assumed you would go to Star and Moon Wheel. But with such coincidences, you transformed into another kind of MO physique. Pu Yao seemed slightly helpless but also grave. There are 172 types of kernel MO physiques. Ranked 1st is Mystical Earth, 2nd is Great Day, 3rd is Demonic Fiend Sea. Mystical Earth is not yin or yang, and is the only MO physique in kernel level MO physiques that doesn't belong to either. The biggest reason that it is ranked 1st is that it can develop into any brigadier physique, including the top 3 brigadier physiques. Great Day is yang and unyielding, filled with brutal power. It is the best for developing any kind of yang and unyielding MO physique in the future. Demonic Fiend Sea is yin and deceptive, and the best for transformations. I have the Great Day MO physique. Zhuo Mo seemed to understand. Right. Pu Yao explained, during the fight with Clear Sky Old Forefather, you coincidentally activated the Big Formation. The Big Formation processed your body, the essence of Golden Crow, Hard Lightning, and Earth Fire. All of those are yang and unyielding substances. Under these coincidental conditions, it allowed you to develop the Great Day MO physique. When he spoke to there, Pu Yao rolled his eyes. It's just you. If this was other MO that cultivated to Great Day MO physique, he would already have gone to find a Jindan to feed on. Afraid of a Jindan? Humph. Feed? What is strange about that? The inner core of Yaoma are treasures to Xiuzhe, the Jindan of a Xiuzhe is also great food for Yaoma. Pu Yao's vividly red tongue unconsciously licked his lips. You could try. That taste is delicious. Zhuo Mo shook, and then swore, Pu Yao, you pervert. Pu Yao was not affected. It's you who is too ignorant. It's very normal for Xiuzhe to use Yaoma to forge and in dan making. But you say we're perverts for eating golden cores? Zhuo Mo was speechless. He decided to not linger on this question. What benefits are there to this Great Day MO physique? Pu Yao became excited. There are many benefits. Otherwise, how can it match to a Jindan Xiuzhe? The first is in cultivating MO skills. You practiced Sky Wave Fist Scripture before, so you must know the crux to fully using the power of this fist scripture is how strong your body is. MO skills are even more extreme on this point. In the future, you will discover that any MO skill in the end it is to cultivate the body. Great Day MO physique is innately strong and powerful. It is easier to cultivate those domineering MO skills. MO skills again, you don't have MO skills, what are you excited for? Zhuo Mo responded neutrally. Pu Yao almost choked. He decided to ignore Zhuo Mo, and continued, MO physiques from Colonel and up have many wondrous abilities. Yaoma are not skilled in forging, and really cannot stack up to Xiuzhe on talismans. What do we do to compete then? One method is a soul-tethered talisman, but they are different from the soul-tethered talisman of Xiuzhe. The Yaoma's soul-tethered talisman is a part of their body, like a claw, tooth, or the skin they shed, formed after being forged constantly. The other method is the transformation of the MO physique. Of the kernel MO physiques, each type of MO physique has its own transformations, but there are never more than 6 transformations. The reason that Mystical Earth, Great Day, and Demonic Fiend Sea can rank in the top 3 is because all of them possess 6 transformations. Zhuo Mo's eyes lit up upon hearing this. What are transformations? Similar to the Abhina of Diana Xiu. Didn't you get Ling Eyes activated? The transformations of a MO physique are techniques that can use the abilities of the MO physique to the greatest degree. You understand the 6 transformations? Zuo looked at Pu Yao with suspicion. Pu Yao said calmly, "No. I just knew." "What, Sky Yao, you don't understand anything," Zuo muttered to himself. A vein throbbed in Pu Yao's forehead, but he suppressed himself. "I might not understand, but someone does." "Who?" Zuo was very curious now. "That guy," Pu Yao said as he pointed at the gravestone. "The gravestone?" Zuo stilled. "Right." Smugness imperceptibly flashed across Pu Yao's eyes. "You only need to agree to a little request from him, and he will teach you the 6 transformations of the great Daimo physique, and also pass Imo skills on to you." Little request? Zuo instinctively detected danger. He suddenly remembered the ancient voice that sounded when Pu Yao had entered his body. "That damned, to abide by my ceremony, to execute my desires, to give my oath, will thou," that had tormented him. The more he thought, the more his anger burned. In the past when Ji had been tender, you felt Ji was easy to bully, and shit and peed on Ji's head. Ji couldn't defeat you, so Ji tolerated it. Now you want to trick Ji. No one could tolerate this. He sprinted in front of the gravestone, and his foot heavily kicked the gravestone. "Idiot! You ran into Ji's sea of consciousness. Didn't give one piece of Jingshi in rent. Now you scheme against Ji. Do you want to live?" Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. As Zuo swore loudly, his foot kicked the gravestone rapidly so much the gravestone wobbled. Seeing Zuo turn berserk, his eyes bloodshot, Pu Yao was dumbstruck where he stood. He dared to kick him. Heavens! After a long time, Pu Yao finally recovered. When he saw the gravestone that had almost been kicked over, his face instantly turned pale. Just as he opened and said one word, he saw Zuo stop and turned around. On the dark and vicious face was a pair of bloody and murderous eyes. Pu Yao swallowed. He felt he was being targeted by a wild beast. If he took a wrong step, Zuo would instantly leap over. His throat felt tight. When his words reached his mouth, they became, "Let's talk peacefully, let's talk peacefully." Zuo turned around his pot-black face, and lifted his foot again. Bang bang bang. After kicking viciously for dozens of times, he finally stopped. Before he left, he did not forget to leave words behind. "Idiot, let Ji tell you. You dare to scheme against Ji will kill you." As he finished, he was finally content and left. Pu Yao looked dumbstruck at the gravestone. The black surface of the gravestone was covered in footprints. After a long moment, Pu Yao suddenly exploded in laughter so hard he fell down. "Ha ha ha ha! This is the person you picked. He has such a personality. Really has a personality. Even more of a personality than you in the past. Ha! How do you feel? It must be great. Ha, I hadn't thought there would be a day when you get kicked by other people. This is so interesting. Ha 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 ha. I like this guy." In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's roaring laughter echoed. When Zuo left the sea of consciousness, his anger had not been completely vented. What great Daimo physique, Ji doesn't care. Don't think that if you had stuff like Imo skills that you can get good things out of Ji. Good doesn't lack spells. Zuo took out a large bunch of jade scrolls from the ring, and arranged them in a row. These jade scrolls had been collected over time while he was in Little Mountain Jia, and were all spells that were unique. The great majority were good 4th grade spells. Among them, there were also 2 5th grade spells. For him, at present, this was enough to use. As to the golden core, it can go to hell. Zuo suddenly had a deep understanding of a rule. Self-reliance was the true path. Back at Wukong Mountain, he was able to break through to the 4th level of the Little Art of Cloud and Rain, by relying on the lowest grade Jade Scroll. Right now, he had this many Jade Scrolls and their grades were not low. There was no reason that he would deteriorate over time. Deeply stimulated by Pu Yao and the gravestone, Zuemo completely sank into a frenzy. Wasn't it just spells? Wasn't it just skills? You think if you hold on to the spells, you hold Ji's throat? If the tiger doesn't roar, you mistake it for a sick cat? Gu will let you see why you Sky Yao and old antiques have declined to the point that you couldn't pay the rent, and had to take out the yin beads but couldn't sell them. While Ji could hold a place in the outer sect of Wukong's sword sect with just the little art of cloud and rain, everyone calling out little Moge, and the Jingshi was rolling in. Discovers the difference between Pu Yao and the gravestone. Bit of a lighter chapter and more Pu Yao's Mo interactions, so hopefully people are satisfied. Also, look, no Lil, Cliffy. I researched and it turns out people pronounce differently in English depending on geography and other influences. So the A in ague seems like to me because that's how I usually say my A. Some of you might pronounce like AI or so please keep that in mind. Should I stick the ramblings of the past chapters back into the edited chapters? I thought they were distracting between chapters, so I left them out. Do they alleviate the off-putting horror that Pu Yao might seem to be? Chapter 305, Entrance to the Jia River. Of more than 100 jade scrolls, 7/10 were sword scriptures. This made Zuemo feel very helpless. Even though he had once cultivated sword essence at Wukong Mountains which had attracted the eye of the sect leader and the others, but that was relying the abilities of Pu Yao to forcibly make gains. His innate talent of practicing the sword was lacking, and he was more skilled with 5-element spells. So when he saw that 70% of the sword scriptures, he really had a headache. However, he had put the words out. If he didn't do something, wouldn't Pu Yao laugh at him? He was determined to get the 2 old codgers to see something new. Zuemo resolved himself. Wasn't it just sword scriptures? He lined up the jade scrolls, and read through each one patiently. However, he did not read deeply, but scanned through all of them first. It took him nearly 2 days to finish reading more than 100 jade scrolls. His head was dizzy and his vision was blurry when he finished, but he felt he had learned a lot. Right now, his cultivation was limited, but of the shouja of the same age, there were only a rare few as knowledgeable as he was. The spiritual cultivation arts of Yao, the body cultivating Mo skills of Mo, and even though he hadn't seen many high-level spells of shouja, but in terms of numbers, it was still very astounding. There were rarely people who would do as he did, and like to read all kinds of spells whether or not he would practice them or not. The best benefit of having a vast knowledge was that he could examine these spells from a higher level. Even though Zuemo could not cultivate these spells to a deep level, but that did not stop him from finding the main concepts. Of course, understanding was just understanding. Casting these spells required more than just understanding. The spells were of a great variety. It clearly was not realistic to cultivate them one by one. And Pu Yao would completely dismiss these spells. He needed to think of a way to shock this guy. Zuemo thought for a long time. His face suddenly lit up. He got it. Is boss okay? Xia Shan had a slightly worried expression. Boss' state was not normal. Anyone that had eyes was able to see this. Boss had been in this state for a few days. Without eating and drinking, he sat on the deck as though he had gone insane, occasionally mutter something. In comparison, a Gue that sat silently beside him seemed more like a normal person. Probably, Ma Fan said uncertainly. Yesterday, boss had suddenly cast an unknown spell. The result was the air in the surroundings had suddenly turned chaotic. They had almost been caught in it. After that, everyone stayed far away from boss. Only a Gue sat silently beside him. Ha, you think that it is easy to make a new spell? Pu Yao fanned the flames from the side. Zuemo ignored him. Time passed extremely quickly. Without realizing it, a month had passed. Zuemo still forgot to rest and eat, but he still had nothing to show for his efforts. The Jia River entrance of Sky Water Jia was extremely wide. This place was controlled together by 8 different entities. 100 Flower Alliance was one of them. 100 Flower Alliance entered the path through the flower. Its entire sect was composed of female Shio. The sect leader, Su Yu, was extremely adept, and 100 Flower Alliance prospered in her hands. Those that could have a share of the Jie River entrance were all sects with great power. It could be imagined how powerful 100 Flower Alliance was. 100 Flower Alliance had a branch at this place with its own camp. More than 500 people were present. The leader was a Jindan elder called Gao Jianting. It was possible to see how much importance 100 Flower Alliance put on the camp. Gao Jianting was as beautiful as a flower. Her begonia sword scripture was at the level of sword essence manifestation. When she attacked, it was a beautiful scene of begonias flying in the sky. The slave transporting boats that went to Little Mountain Jia last time still haven't come back. Is there any other news? Gao Jianting's brow was creased. Shu, no news has come back, a female disciple hurriedly responded. Gao Jianting murmured to herself, did something happen? Just at this time, a female disciple suddenly ran in with panic. Shu, please come out and see this. Gao Jianting's expression changed, and her figure disappeared. In the air, Gao Jiantiang looked at the vast army in front of her, and inhaled sharply. The sky above the Jia River was completely filled with shouja without any visible end. Shu, that's our slave transporting boats, a female disciple cried out. Gao Jianting's pupils suddenly shrank. That was right, the 5 big ships at the very center of this large army were the slave transporting boats of 100 Flower Alliance. The other didn't even change the 100 Flower Alliance markings on the slave transporting boats. She was confident that something had happened in Little Mountain Jie. This large procession disturbed all the factions. Sword lights flashed, and large amounts of shouja flew into the sky. However, when they saw such a large number of shouja, they were dumbstruck where they stood. Heavens! What is going on? The 5 colossal slave transporting boats slowly flew with a shocking presence like moons buoyed by the stars. Gao Jianting's expression changed. She controlled herself and did not move rashly. Since the other had gotten to this place, Clear Sky Old Forefather had most likely been killed. They were both Jindan, and Gao Jianting knew her own strength was far below Clear Sky Old Forefather. Even more, the troop that was swimming around the slave transporting boats looked extremely strong from a glance. She was not only one. Every person's gaze was attracted by Vermilion Bird Camp. This troop of no more than 800 people gave them a strong feeling of danger. Elite. Only an elite force that gone through many battles would possess such a dangerous aura. The Little Mountain Jia Shouja that had just arrived were exhausted, but all of them were excited. They had finally escaped Little Mountain Jia. However, when they noticed the shouja from Sky Water Jia looking warily at them, they instantly quieted down. These fortunate shouja that had survived had all gone through blood and fire. Their sensitivity to danger was far higher than Sky Water Jia shouja. They unconsciously retreated towards the 5 slave transporting boats. Even more of them took out their talismans. Silence, an abnormal silence. The situation instantly became tense. The expressions of the Sky Water Jia shouja changed. They felt as though there was an invisible cord tightening slowly. Gao Jianting's expression also changed as well. The other side had much higher numbers than they did. If a conflict occurred, this place would flow with blood. Their gazes all turned to the 5 slave transporting boats. At this time, many people noticed the 100 flower pavilion marks on the slave transporting boats and looked at Gao Jianting with strange looks. However, when they saw the contorted grimace on Gao Jianting's face, they instantly understood. They all knew what 100 flower pavilion had done in Little Mountain Jie. Looking at it now, 100 flower pavilion probably had not gotten any benefits. However, they were more curious about the 5 slave transporting boats. From the movements of the shouja, it was possible to see the leader of this group of people were on the 5 boats. Gong Sun Cha looked at Zhuo Mo. Shu Long looked at Zhuo Mo. They were waiting for Zhuo Mo's order. The Xiuzha in the surroundings all turned to look at Zhuo Mo, waiting for the order from the master of Golden Crow City. When people encountered danger, they were used to looking towards people who could resolve the problem and bring them victory. Zhuo Mo was this kind of person in their hearts. Gao Jianting and the others also noticed the change in people's gazes, and unconsciously looked towards the youth sitting on the deck of the slave-transporting boat at the very front. The enormous Jia River entrance was silent. At the center of everyone's attention, Zhuo Mo didn't feel anything at all. He was arguing furiously with Pu Yao. This is what you thought of? Ha, nonsense. Pu Yao said scornfully, I thought you had some ability, but after working for a month, you just have something this far-fetched. Far-fetched? You old codger that's been dead for 1,000 years, you're just like the gravestone, even your mind has rusted. Of course you guys can't understand something this cutting-edge. Zhuo Mo was not weak as he retaliated. Don't put me with that guy. Pu Yao raged, this honored Sky Yao, so what if you're a Sky Yao? Zhuo Mo said disdainfully as he looked sideways, out of time is out of time. Pu Yao smiled and said calmly, your idea is unique, but your experience in cultivation is too little. You clearly have underestimated the difficulty in this. If you are in Jindan, you may be able to use this move, but you definitely cannot right now. Something that cannot be used has no value. It's useless because you say so. You really are confident. Zhuo Mo snorted coldly. If I can do it, what then? Pu Yao's eye narrowed like a blade, and he said darkly, you do not need to provoke me. If you can do it, I will help you get the 6 transformations of Great Damo physique. But if you cannot do it, then you have to agree to the gravestone's oath. You promise? Zhuo Mo asked as he tilted his head. Yes. Pu Yao said coldly. All right, I agree. Zhuo Mo nickered, a cunning smile on his face. Pu, you got tricked. Finishing, Zhuo Mo's hands swiped and forming a sword scripture move. A faint blue sword energy appeared in front of him. His hands continuously swiped. A red sword energy and a gold sword energy appeared. His expression was unusually serious. With a light shout, the sword scriptures on his hands turned and his hand motions changes. The 3 sword energies seemed to change as they were guided by an invisible force. Pooh, this is 3 talent formation. In front of Zhuo Mo was a 3-leaf-shaped sword formation composed of sword energies. The sword formation flowed in motion. For cardinal formation, Zhuo Mo released another sword scripture. This formation changed. 3 talent into 4 cardinal. The nimble presence turned to a heavy one. 5-element formation. Heaven Light 7-star sword formation. Gao Jianting stared at the sword formation in front of the youth with shock on her face. With her eyes, she could see that every sword energy the youth released was a beginning one, but the attributes of each sword energy were completely different. If it was just this, that only showed that this boy's knowledge was shamefully heterogeneous, and she wouldn't be so shocked. Yet the youth deliberately merged these sword energies of different attributes into a sword formation. She could not completely understand the sword formation in front of the youth, but there were 36 types of sword energies that were put in. When these normal sword energies formed a sword formation, their power grew. Looking from far away, she could feel threads of cold. This skill was to turn what was rotten into a wonder. Powerful. What were the origins of this youth? She did not notice that the tense atmosphere had dissipated. Everyone's attention were attracted by the sword formation in front of Zhuo Mo. No matter if it was the Xiuzha of Sky Water Jia or Little Mountain Jia, all of them had shock on their faces. At this time, Zhuo Mo's eyes suddenly widened as he glared and shouted, "Pooh, look closely." Chapter 306, Spells entering formation. Zhuo Mo's cheeks ballooned, his eyes were round like a toad expanding its cheeks, and blew out heavily. Whoosh! A red thread of fire emerged from his mouth. Countless small flames landed like raindrops in the sword formation. Boom! The light from the sword formation exploded, countless red sparks floating in the middle. Inside the sharp murderous intent was an explosive energy. At the same time, Zhuomo's hands flipped and the little art of cloud and rain formed. The glowing rain silently entered the sword formation. Innumerable clear droplets floated inside the formation. The water and fire were clearly divided and extremely pretty to look at. However, no one was attracted by its beauty. The dangerous presence exuded by the water and fire sword formation made everyone's hearts speed up. Pooh, look, isn't this it? Zhuomo smugly showed off. This was the method he thought of. After Zhuomo had read through more than 100 jade scrolls, he found that while the quality of each was good, there wasn't a spell that made piqued his interest. At this moment, he suddenly found that he had become pickier without previously noticing it. However, he suddenly discovered that even though these spells and sword scriptures were not outstanding, they were at least varied. Each jade scroll had its own unique qualities. He had a daring idea. Could he merge all of these spells together? Consequently, he thought of formations. Different sword energies and spells contained an abundance of changes, and thus they were perfect for formations. It was extremely difficult to use different sword energies and spells to create a formation. When this idea jumped out, he knew it was possible. However, he didn't speak of it. He really desired the 6 transformations of the great Daimo physique from the bottom of his heart, especially when he heard Pu Yao say that it could match a Jin Dan Xiuzhe. He forcibly stopped the impulse to make a deal, and spent a whole month to sort through every detail that he could think of before he set the trap for Pu Yao. Zhuomo's face was very smug, but his heart was beating rapidly inside. Only when he finished setting up the formation did the stone in his heart land on the ground. Dearie, he should not frequently do things like this in the future, that was too intense for Ji. How is it possible? When Zhuomo saw Pu Yao's dumbstruck expression, all of the nervousness flew away, and his body felt unspeakably comfortable. Divine Summoning Art. Pu Yao's eyes widened greatly as he stared in disbelief at Zhuomo. Divine Summoning Art? What is that? Zhuomo was confused. Pu Yao had a death stare locked on Zhuomo. His gaze was so strange that Zhuomo felt his hairs stand up. Pu, I have no interest in Yao. Pu Yao's eyes were tightly fixed on Zhuomo and he did not speak. After a while, Zhuomo really could not suppress himself. Pu, you can't go back on your word. His finger motions instantly changed. Look, I used Bright Light spell as the foundation, then Black Fire spell, and Lingwood spell, so that the wood element would create fire. Then I used the Black Day spell as the connection to create the presence of the fire-tailed tiger, which is highly offensive and vicious. In front of him, a formation that seemed like a ferocious tiger took form. A thread of fire tail was waving in the air, cold and murderous. Gao Jianting, who saw this, couldn't stop herself from inhaling sharply. With a few flicks of the youth's finger, all kinds of spells fell like rain, and the formation took form almost in the blink of an eye. What finger method was this? With her cultivation and keen eyes, she could clearly see every step Zhuomo made, but when all the movements were connected together, she could not understand it. However, the high-spirited and vicious presence of this fire-tailed tiger formation rushed at her face. She had never heard of such a fantastical method. In her eyes, the youth sitting on the boat suddenly became deep and mysterious. Was it the disciple of some big sect out on a rite of passage? This was her only rational guess. The highest-ranking commanders of the other factions also had heavy expression at this time. Zhuomo's move really was astounding and exquisite, stunning the entire place. Even though they didn't know why this youth would show this to everyone, but the factions couldn't help but start to mutter. Why do you know divine summoning art? Pu Yao stared at Zhuomo and bit out his words one by one. What is divine summoning art? Zhuomo asked curiously. Pu Yao stared at Zhuomo for a long time before opening. Then how are you controlling these spells? Spiritual power. Zuo looked strangely at Pu Yao. Of course it is spiritual power. This is very easy. Look. He flicked with a finger and a thread of fire flew before him. Without any visible action from him, the thread of fire seemed to be pulled by an invisible force to spin around Zuo. You don't know how. Zuo felt it was even more strange. No way. Shouldn't a finger method as easy as this be something that all Yao cultivate? How many threads can you control in total? Pu Yao did not answer but asked in response. A lot. Without another word, Zuo's finger flicked continuously. Threads of fire floated in the air. In a short moment, more than 100 flames were floating around him. Zuo's consciousness moved, and controlled these flames to perform all kinds of moves. Alright. I will give you the 6 transformations to the Great Damo physique tomorrow. Pu Yao said decisively. Zuo instantly had a smile. Pu Yao might have the track record of a con artist, but when he promised something he never went back on his word. You should first resolve what is happening right now, Pu Yao then said. Zuo stilled. Pu Yao's tone actually became slightly friendly. This made feel very unaccustomed. Illusion, this definitely was an illusion. As he warned himself not to forget, he started to examine what was in front of him. When he looked, his body shook. What situation was this? The surroundings were deathly silent and every person was looking at him. Even if the skin on Zuo's face was thick, he still felt his scalp prickle. Had he been embarrassing himself in front of so many people just now? It was over. He wailed inside. However, the skin on his face was truly thick, and he quickly composed himself. Zuo calmly asked, what's going on? When Xia Shan, Ma Fan, and the others heard this, they almost dropped from the sky. They stared at each other. Boss had made such a fuss, and now he was asking them what was happening. Gong Sun Cha's expression did not change. He coughed lightly, and said to Zhong Ru beside him, "Oh, the wind outside is strong, I'm going in to rest." He then left for the cabin. Zhong Ru reached out a hand in bewilderment. There was no wind. Seeing no one answer after a while, anger sprouted from Zuo's embarrassment. He pointed at Ma Fan, "You, speak." Ma Fan felt very unlucky. He could hear the muffled laughs of Xia Shan, Lei Peng and the others beside him, but he forced himself to fly next to Zuo. "Boss, this, look," he pointed at the sky water Jia Xiuzha in the sky. Zuo followed Ma Fan's finger and gazed at the sky water Jia Xiuzha opposite them. After tilting his head and thinking for a while, he said, "They are not letting us go across." When these words came out, all the little mountain Jia Xiuzha uncontrollably tightened their grip on their talismans, their gazes became vicious. Gao Jianting and the others had extraordinary hearing. When they heard Zuo's words, their hearts jumped suddenly. If they had been just wary of the number of the little mountain Jia Xiuzha before, after seeing Zuo's uncanny formation, they were even more wary of his origins. The instinctive movements of the other Xiuzha subordinates made their hearts tighten when they saw it. They knew that it was not good, but if they spoke and showed weakness now, they felt they would lose face. At this time, Rong Wei inserted, "City Master, don't be angry. Everyone must not have known that City Master and your procession would be arriving, and have overreacted. City Master, please allow this one to go forward to speak." Rong Wei was very nervous. She had seen the Battle of Golden Crow City. Zuo didn't even respect Clear Sky Old Forefather. If these people infuriated him, this place would flow with blood today. Having managed to escape from Little Mountain Jia after a struggle, Zuo was slightly discontent at being blockaded at the Sky Water Jia entrance. He had led this group of people and survived for so long in Little Mountain Jia, and a killing energy had settled on his body. However, he didn't want to enter a conflict with the local factions just as he entered Sky Water Jie. He said to Rong Wei, "Then we will trouble Miss Rong." Rong Wei hurriedly flew towards the people of Sky Water Jie. Normal Shouja might not know of Rong Wei of the House of the Crow Marquis, but the leaders of the 8 factions recognized her. After Rong Wei went over and quietly spoke with them, the Sky Water Jia Shouja in front of Zhou Mo retreated. Zhou Mo was slightly shocked. It seemed this House of the Crow Marquis wasn't simple. Thinking about how the House of the Crow Marquis was investigating the stars in daytime, Zhou Mo was very irritated. It wasn't a good feeling that he was being targeted by a force that had a powerful background. Rong Wei came back and smiled. It is done. Zhou Mo had to give his thanks again. The 5 slave transporting boats slowly started and took the vast group of Xiuhe into Sky Water Jie. Gao Jianting gazed at this enormous troop, worry rising in her heart. She could only hope now that these 5 slave transporting boats were not spoils of war from a direct conflict. No, she had to report this to the sect leader immediately. She didn't dare to procrastinate and took out a paper crane. After she finished writing, she channeled Ling power into the crane and watched as it disappeared into the sky. At the same time, hundreds of paper cranes flew into the sky and disappeared. As they entered Sky Water Jia, Zhou Mo's emotions totally relaxed. At evening, they reached the first major city of Sky Water Jia, Guangheng City. When such a large number of Shouja appeared in the horizon, they created terror in the local Shouja. Fortunately, Rong Wei came out at the appropriate time to comfort them and dissipate their panic. Seeing the situation, Zhou Mo established camp at a mountain peak outside the city. There were no gatherings in the world that did not end. Many Shouja came at this time to Zhou Mo to give their farewells. Zhou Mo did not urge them to remain and gave them his good wishes. The sky filled with sword lights like rain that disappeared into the sky. Their individual power was undoubted after being able to survive in Little Mountain Jie. They would have good lives in Sky Water Jie. After some thought, Zhou Mo gathered everyone together, and took the Jinji off their bodies. He looked with emotion at them, and suddenly felt a bit proud. Truthfully, I had no choice but to put Jinji in everyone in the past. Fortunately, we have escaped Little Mountain Jie. Starting from today, everyone is free. You can go wherever you want. Everyone can go get 5 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi from Old Bao. The people shifted slightly, but all of them were silent. No one moved. Zhou Mo saw that no one moved, and felt irritated. He waved his hand. I'm letting you go, so go. Finishing, he turned and left. It was night, and the moonlight was like water. Chapter 307, Bright Water City. Zhou Mo sat on top of a rock at the top of the mountain. The moon was shining above his head, and a Gui was sitting silently beside him. Gongsun Cha found Zhou Mo seeing him, he could only smile. What are you smiling about? Zhou Mo said irritably, and then asked, where's Qing Shidi? He's still experimenting with his Ling beasts. According to him, he's at a critical time period. Gongsun Cha found a rock beside Zhou Mo and sat down. He stretched lazily. I can finally rest. In Little Mountain Jia, I didn't have one night of peaceful rest. I had thought that a battle maniac like you wouldn't need to rest. Zhou Mo glanced at him and mocked. Oh, that's because I was just starting. Gongsun Cha gave a shy smile. Zhou Mo acted as though he was going to puke. Why are you letting them leave? Gongsun Cha's tone became serious. Zhou Mo rolled his eyes. I can't support them. Do you know how great the pressure it is to feed all these people? Oh, in Little Mountain Jia, we can steal resources, but that doesn't work anywhere else. Those not in charge of the household do not know how expensive food is. To say of nothing else, you know how much Vermilion Bird Camp uses every day. In any case, we have all fought together, it's better to have a good farewell. Gongsun Cha was the one that knew the most about the expenses of Vermilion Bird Camp. It definitely was not realistic to keep everyone. Sky Water Jia was much more wealthy and prosperous than Little Mountain Jia, but its territories had already been divided up. If they wanted to insert themselves, they would have to act against other factions. Gongsun Cha did not fear fighting, but this way, they would easily become the common enemy of the entire Sky Water Jie. That would not be good. A lot of people would probably go. Gongsun Cha smacked his lips as he said, people's hearts have started to change as they arrived in Sky Water Jie. This is also good, Suemo said. The two became silent. After a while, Gongsun Cha looked at Suemo, and then at Ague who was sitting woodenly. He asked, where do we go next? And, don't say something like it's dangerous, and you will go alone. Suemo's heart warmed and said, I need to find Water Cloud Embryo. Water Cloud Embryo? Gongsun Cha looked at Ague. For Ague. Suemo nodded, I don't know what connection I have with Ague, but since she became like this to save me, I cannot just sit back and do nothing. That's for sure. Gongsun Cha had an expression of agreement and then raised his arms, shouting exuberantly, for Ague. We will find Cloud Water Embryo. Suemo was very moved and a smile appeared on his face. The best is if we can encounter more fighting. It makes me excited just thinking about it. Gongsun Cha said calmly. As expected from a battle maniac. Oh, where are we going to find Water Cloud Embryo? Can we buy it? Gongsun Cha asked. Don't know. Suemo shook his head. He looked at Ague and said, we have to investigate. His heart suddenly moved and took out the sound tablet from his ring. Gongsun Cha's gaze was attracted and he was very shocked. Shixiang has kept this with you. It's been so long since I listened to it. Yes, it's been a long time since we listened. Suemo channeled Ling power into the sound tablet. The calm voice floated out from the sound tablet and was unspeakably intimate. Under the moonlight, Suemo and Gongsun Cha idly listened to the sound tablet, Ague sitting silently beside them. The morning of the next day. Yesterday night was fated to be a difficult one for many people. The eyes of many people were bloodshot, some of them had heavy expressions. The number of people in the camp had been dramatically reduced. Gongsun Cha's expression was very relaxed. No one from Vermilion Bird Camp had left. The people that left were mostly from the eastern and western camps. Of more than 2,000 people, less than 800 remained. I can fill Vermilion Bird Camp now, Gongsun Cha said with a smile. Vermilion Bird Camp did not leave and Guard Camp did not leave. The departure of the majority of the eastern and western camp was not out of Zuomo's expectations. What surprised him was the forging division. None of the Xiuzha from the forging division had left. Zuomo looked at the pairs of eyes below him and was very moved. He opened his mouth, but when the words reached his lips, he didn't know what to say. What are you all standing here for? Go back to work. Zuomo's shout made everyone roar with laughter. The sorrow due the departures had dissipated greatly. Rong Wei saw this scene and her heart shook. She increasingly felt that she could not clearly understand the master of Golden Crow City. Yesterday, she had been very shocked when she heard the master of Golden Crow City was letting people leave. How could there be someone that would willingly weaken themselves? But today, when she saw the determined looks of the Xiuzha from Golden Crow City, she seemed to understand. This troop in front of her was more unified and had stronger morale than the previous group. Even if they encountered greater dangers, they wouldn't easily break up. The master of Golden Crow City appeared to have weakened his power, but in reality, his primary strength had not been damaged, the organization had become purer, and the average strength had actually went up a level, and had gained strong abilities of survival. Looking at that outrageously young face, Rong Wei felt it was almost impossible to believe. At a glance, Zuomo did not have any outstanding qualities. But the actions this youth took frequently displayed a maturity that surpassed his age. She suddenly realized that even if the master of Golden Crow City did not have that mysterious and powerful sect behind him, he would not be one of the masses with his abilities. Just as she was thinking, Zuomo suddenly turned around to face her. Miss Rong, where is the biggest city of Sky Water Jie? Rong Wei gathered her thoughts and said with a slight smile, there are 28 primary towns in Sky Water Jie. The most prosperous would be Bright Water City. Does City Master have any plans? Oh, I have a batch of items I want to sell, and buy items along the way. If that's the case, Bright Water City is perfect. The biggest merchants in Sky Water Jia are all in Bright Water City. Rong Wei then said with a smile, this one's house is located in Bright Water City, and have relationships with those merchants, we may be able to help. Zhuo Mo hurried to give him thanks. Many thanks, Miss Rong. Su finished reading the paper crane that Gao Jianting had sent, and a shadow flashed through her eyes. Su was very charismatic and attractive. She was still the most attractive woman even among the multitude of beautiful women in Hundred Flower Alliance. She had managed Hundred Flower Alliance for 20 years and had good relationships with all the sections. The disciples under her had mostly married the accomplished disciples from big sects, and she had a deep foundation. Let's not rashly move on this matter. Su said deeply, see what their origins really are. Yes, the female disciple respectfully responded. Where are they now? They reached the border of the city last night. The female disciple crisply answered, it was Miss Rong Wei that brought them over. Oh. Su was slightly surprised and then had an expression of deep thought. She could not see what connection Rong Wei had with this master of Golden Crow City. The house of the Crow Marquis was as deep as the sea, and hard for outsiders to probe. But Hundred Flower Alliance had countless eyes, and were the most skilled at spying. Su could see a hint. Of all the factions in Bright Water City, the one Su was wary of the most was the House of the Crow Marquis. The House of the Crow Marquis was usually low-key and did not attend to outside matters. The Crow Marquis himself only focused on cultivation. However, all the hints showed that there was a deep background behind the Crow Marquis. Su had detected this a long time ago, but after all these years, no matter how they searched, they still did not find anything. Rong Wei's trip this time was the biggest action the House of the Crow Marquis took in years. Su smelt an unusual flavor from this. When they saw Bright Water City, Zhuo Mo and the Shidi were slightly shocked. Bright Water City was tens of times bigger than Dongfu. The entire sky was covered in lights that streamed without end. In the sky above the city floated hundreds of islands of various sizes. The houses constructed on the lucky clouds were multicolored from the lights of all kinds of jinji and formations. Sky Water Jia was more prosperous than Sky Moon Jia as expected. The other people were alright, but the trio of Zhuo Mo, Gongsun Cha, and Chen Yucheng were people that were inexperienced. Each of them gaped, their faces filled with shock. Rong Wei, who had been constantly observing them, felt slightly confused. These three's actions did not seem like those that came from large sections. However, she was not suspicious. Many disciples from large sect never asked about worldly affairs so they could concentrate on cultivation. Some people would never even leave the sect's mountain for decades. She didn't show any signs of scorn and enthusiastically showed them around. Bright Water City is the best part of Sky Water Jie. Almost 4/10 of this Jie's Ling veins are located here, and there are the most secret paradises here. If City Master wants to develop here, you could buy a few secret paradises. They are the best for cultivating. Secret paradises did not hold any attraction for Zhuo Mo. His Mo physique could automatically absorb Ling power from the world and it could process the impurities. He did not need a secret paradise. The other people also lacked interest in the secret paradises. Rong Wei was even more certain now that the master of Golden Crow City came from a large sect. For normal shouja, secret paradises were their biggest love as well as their greatest wish. Many shouja worked their whole lives with the goal of owning a secret paradise. Only disciples from large sects did not need to worry about secret paradises. Zhuo Mo's procession could truly be called vast. They had camped at an empty area outside the city. What made Zhuo Mo depressed was that the empty area outside the city was owned. It had taken Rong Wei coming forward to get the matter settled. Xu Long and the others did not have any interest in touring the city. Having recovered his youth, Xu Long's mania on cultivation was enough to make Zuemo sweat. With him as the role model, everyone in guard camp had become cultivation maniacs. The people of the forging division also stayed at the camp with only Sun Bao and Ji Wei coming along. Other than that, Bao Yi was a person that could not be left behind. Considering that they should not be high-key, Gong Sun Cha still took along 3 divisions, Sky Peak Platoon among them. Even so, this procession was very eye-catching. The killing aura of Vermilion Bird Camp that had been forged through combat was completely different than normal guards. Landing in the eyes of those who understood, they couldn't stop themselves from speculating. Fortunately, Rong Wei knew many people in Brightwater City and people would occasionally come up to exchange greetings. Rong Wei's mind suddenly moved, and when she raised her head, a paper crane flew over. The paper crane landed on her palm. She lightly unfolded it. When she finished reading, there was a surprised expression. The Marquis was not in the compound. The compound guard she had sent back to the compound informed her that the Marquis had left half a month ago and had not yet returned. Rong Wei felt slight regret. She had wanted to take the master of Golden Crow City to meet the Marquis. The Marquis was very knowledgeable and might have been able to see his origins. It seemed like she could not do it. She was worried about the affairs of the house and bowed in apology to Zuemo, "My sincere apologies." Rong Wei did not know that the Marquis had left a fortnight ago, and has not yet returned. There are many affairs in the compound. Rong Wei will bid farewell early. City Master, please give your forgiveness. Hearing this, Zuemo hurriedly said, "Miss Rong has helped us greatly. We are very grateful, you should hurry. We will just walk around by ourselves." Worried about the internal situation of the house, Rong Wei left. The procession of people hadn't walked around for long when Zuemo's expression changed and suddenly stopped walking. Someone was following them. Chapter 308, Brute. Zuemo gave everyone a look. They all understood and purposely walked towards a less populated area. "Is there a reason Sir is following us?" Zuemo looked coldly at this shoujo wearing almond-yellow Taoist robes, with white hair yet had a childlike appearance. There were still many people passing by. When these shoujo saw the yellow-robed old Taoist, they all changed expression and hurriedly left. Little baby is pretty clever to have noticed old forefather. This old person's tone was very proud. Facing Zuemo's procession, he showed no fear. The 3 divisions of Vermilion Bird Camp silently prepared to fight and could attack at any moment. "I urge you to not move." The yellow-robed old Taoist snickered. "Otherwise, this old forefather would make you feel it." Zuemo rolled his eyes. Why did everyone speak so much these days? However, Zuemo didn't want to make trouble right after arriving in Brightwater City. He glanced at the yellow-robed old Taoist. "Sir has followed us for this long, it shouldn't just be to chat, right? Hee, little baby, you have a talisman. Since you can't use it, why don't you give it to this old forefather?" the yellow-robed old Taoist said cheerfully. Zuemo was slightly surprised. He said, "Talisman? I have many talismans. Which one is Sir speaking of?" "You have a pile of scrap metal. There's only one that can be considered a talisman, it should be a 6th-grade talisman." The yellow-robed old Taoist narrowed his eyes that twinkled with greed. 6th-grade talisman. Zuemo's heart shook. The number of people that knew the 9-turn sky soil disc had landed in his possession was pitifully few. How could this old Taoist know? Sir is joking. A 6th-grade talisman isn't something someone like this one can possess. Zuemo refuted. "Don't pretend in front of this old forefather." The expression of the yellow-robed old Taoist turned cold and he seemed impatient. "Old forefather doesn't want to hear you blab. If you are wise, hand it over. Old forefather naturally won't forget to give you something in return." "Sir means?" Zuo said lightly, his eyes turning cold. Ha, don't think that old forefather doesn't dare to attack you because you glued yourselves onto the house of the Crow Marquis. Humph, even if the Crow Marquis personally comes, he can't save you. The presence of the yellow-robed old Taoist suddenly grew. The Ling power in the surroundings seemed to become chaotic and become abnormally restless. The faces of Zuo and the others changed dramatically. Jin Dan. This yellow-robed old Taoist was actually a Jin Dan. He. Be wise, and take it out. Don't make old forefather personally act. It won't look good then, the yellow-robed Taoist said darkly. The strong Ling pressure was like lead that pressed down on them to the point of suffocation. Zuo and the others had never directly faced a Jin Dan at such a close distance. Their battle against Clear Sky Old Forefather had been in the air. The feeling now was completely different. In their eyes, the figure of the yellow-robed old Taoist was as high as a mountain. They were as small as insects, and unable to shake him. At such a close distance to a Jin Dan, just this terrifying Ling pressure was enough for the great majority of Ningmai to lose their will to resist. I hadn't noticed that you do have some talent. A flash of shock passed through the eyes of the yellow-robed old Taoist and then he snickered. Pity that it isn't enough in front of old forefather. A light flashed through the eyes of the yellow-robed old Taoist. Everyone suddenly felt their body be pulled down and could not move. They couldn't even raise their arms. Everyone had shocked expressions. Power of the earth. Zuo glared angrily, but his body didn't move at all. He finally knew why the other wanted the 9-turn sky soil disc. The other cultivated earth element spells. What earth element spell was so tyrannical? Xia Shan gave a muffled grunt and forcibly channeled his Ling power to activate his sword scripture. Somewhat interesting. It seems you are almost at Jin Dan. The yellow-robed old Taoist had a surprised expression again. However, he then was unconcerned. It's a pity that your luck isn't good. Pew. Xia Shan felt the Ling power in his chest reverse. He couldn't not stop himself from spraying up a mouthful of blood. Don't struggle. The yellow-robed old Taoist looked scornfully at Xia Shan. It is useless. There is just one line between us, but this one line is the difference between heaven and earth. Finishing, he ignored Xia Shan and turned to walk towards Zuo. Why did you have to force old forefather to act? The yellow-robed old Taoist smiled smugly and casually walked in front of Zuo and slapped Zuo's face. He roared with laughter. Old forefather's luck today is really good, many thanks to you. The Xiozha of Vermilion Bird Camp all glared angrily, furiously channeling their Ling power to struggle. They are pretty loyal to you. The yellow-robed old Taoist snickered and continued to slap Zuo's face. But so what? Ha ha. Zuo bore the pain and asked through his teeth, how did you know I have this talisman? The yellow-robed old Taoist was very proud. I'll teach you a lesson. 6th grade talismans have cognition, and old forefather knows a spell to find cognition. He examined Zuo from head to toe. At the end, his eyes landed on the rings on Zuo's hand. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he laughed loudly. Old forefather is getting a tidy sum today. So many dimensional rings. As he spoke, he reached out to grab at a ring on Zuo's finger. Just as his finger touched Zuo's finger, a change suddenly happened. This motionless hand that was wearing several dimensional rings flipped upwards without a warning, and grabbed his hand. The expression of the yellow-robed old Taoist suddenly changed. A terrifying force passed from his hand. He could not control his body and was slammed towards the other. Not good. The yellow-robed old Taoist reacted quickly. He was just going to activate his Ling shield when his eyes suddenly bulged, his figure felt numb, and curled upwards. A punch that could break rock slammed into his abdomen. Zuo's features were twisted. Half of his face was still red as he bellowed, Gu has had to bear with you for a long time already. Bang! The body of the yellow-robed old Taoist shook. The enormous force caused his entire face to deform. After practicing Vajra Profound Sutra, Zhuo Mo's strength had increased greatly. The present strength of Zhuo Mo, who had a great day Mo physique, had reached a terrifying level. The flesh of Mo were all extremely strong, and how could great day Mo physique, which ranked second of all Brigadier Mo physiques, lack in this regard? It wasn't lacking, and was stronger, much stronger than Zhuo Mo had imagined. When his body had been restricted earlier, he had held some power back. He had personally experienced the restrictive abilities of the 9-turn sky-earth disk, and therefore didn't panic. The power of the great day Mo physique was much stronger than the time he had been trapped by the 9-turn sky-soil disk. But no one else in his group had the same terrifying strength he did. As a single person, he definitely could not defeat the other. Zhuo Mo could only feign weakness to bait the enemy. At this time, he felt satisfaction. He had never felt that his fists were so filled with power. Each punch seemed to vent the anger inside of him into the body of the yellow-robed old Taoist. Old forefather. Ha, don't you know GE already killed an old forefather? Bang! Dare to steal GE's treasures. Do you want to live? Bang! Dare to slap GE's face. You're finished. Bang bang bang. Zhuo Mo handed out more than 10 punches, each one landing on flesh. When a wallop landed on the body of the yellow-robed old Taoist, it was possible to see his body shake, and his flesh ripple. Zhuo Mo hadn't vented his anger yet. Holding the neck of the yellow-robed old Taoist, he threw the other onto the ground like throwing down a bag of sand. Hiss! Simultaneous inhales came from the surroundings, including Xia Shan, who was injured and also looked with abject shock at boss who had totally gone berserk. Boom boom boom. The stone tiles on the ground cracked, stone flying with every blow. Pia, the Ling armor of the yellow-robed old Taoist, couldn't tolerate such brutal strikes and shattered. Zhuo Mo's hand paused. The Ling armor of a Jindan should be worth a lot of Jinshe. His heart suddenly started to hurt. He suddenly became furious, and continued to slam the yellow-robed old Taoist into the ground a dozen more times before he stopped. He raised his head with satisfaction, one hand holding the neck of the yellow-robed old Taoist, and turned to face the other people. Are you guys okay? Whoosh, everyone simultaneous stepped back. There wasn't any anger left in their eyes. They looked with sympathy at the yellow-robed old Taoist that was being held by the neck by Zhuo Mo like a rabid dog. The pitiful yellow-robed old Taoist was not shaped like a person anymore. He was completely swollen from the beating and was unconscious. Pitiful, so pitiful. They had never seen such a pitiful Jindan, one that had been punched to the point of being misshapen. They should never offend boss. Even a rough man like Lei Pen was pale with fright like a little girl, his heart shaking rapidly. Zhong Ru, who had once taught boss fist scriptures, had an ashen face. He dared to guarantee that he had not taught this. What was wild? What was brutish? What was savage? In comparison to using brute force to hit a Jindan to the point of unconsciousness, becoming misshapen due to swelling of the entire body and leaving compound fractures. We are Xiuzhe, we specialize in techniques and Ling. So when boss turned with a reddened face, his face ferocious as he panted, they all retreated a few steps. Zhuo Mo glanced at the yellow-robed old Taoist that he was holding, and felt very good inside. He finally caught a Jindan this time. He had promised to give Pu Yao a golden core. He hadn't expected that he would encounter such a stupid Jindan today. At this time, he completely forgot how he was completely suppressed before. Back to the camp. He waved his hand grandly and flew at the front. Far from where they were, Su Yu's face was slightly pale. It was the first time she had seen such a savage and brutish person. When she had seen the yellow-robed old Taoist go to make trouble for Zhuo Mo, she had taken note. She wanted to see just how powerful this group was, but there was much to be wary of. The appearance of the yellow-robed old Taoist was a great opportunity. She recognized the yellow-robed Taoist. This person was vicious and cruel and had killed many people. Even other Jindan Shouja were wary of him. The beginning of the incident did not deviate from her imagination. Anyone that had a bit of common knowledge knew the difference between Jindan and Ningmai. She even felt that Zhuemo wouldn't dare to rebel, and obediently give up the talismans. When the yellow-robed Taoist had activated his spell, she had secretly shaken her head inside. This master of Golden Crow City really wasn't a smart person. But the scene immediately after struck her dumb. The master of Golden Crow City had suddenly moved and grabbed the yellow-robed old Taoist. Without using any Ling power, definitely without any Ling power like a street-roaming gangster, he had beat down a Jindan with his fists. But the fist that had no Ling power actually had beaten the yellow-robed old Taoist to the point of being misshapen. Was he a body-cultivating Shouja? What stage had he cultivated to in order to be able to beat a Jindan Shouja to this state? The simple and rough barrage from the master of Golden Crow City made her pale and uncontrollably feel a threat of fear. This was a true brute. Chapter 309, The Greatest Gain. At the camp. Can't you go faster? Pu Yao impatiently urged from behind him. What are you rushing for? Let me see if I missed anything. Zhuemo searched the body of the old Taoist one more time in great detail, to prevent anything from being left behind, before reluctantly throwing the old Taoist to Pu Yao. Pu Yao hurriedly turned into a black wind that took up the old Taoist and disappeared. So pitiful. Zhuemo shook his head in sympathy, but when his eyes returned to his spoils, his face instantly filled with smiles. Fighting against a Jindan was a painful process, but inventorying the spoils was the best experience. Whoa! There wasn't much on the body of the old Taoist, but to be seen to have value in the eyes of a Jindan, those items naturally were not ordinary. A string of mother and child copper bells, a blue stone about the size of his palm shaped like a mountain, and 3 jade scrolls. Zhuemo first took out the mother and child bells. The big and small yellow copper bells were strung together with a red string. Zhuemo found it interesting and swung the copper bell. Dong! Zhuemo seemed to be hit full-on by a wild beast. Before he could react, he was thrown back multiple zhang. After a while, Zhuemo shook his head as he climbed up and spat out the sand in his mouth. His eyes were bright as he stared at the bells on the ground. Such a powerful talisman. If he did not possess the great Daimo physique, he probably would have died right there. It was the first time he saw such a strange sound-type talisman. Most sound-type talismans enchanted the mind, and those that were stronger could directly attack the soul. These mother and child bells could physically attack. Strange. It was too strange. Zhuemo carefully picked up the mother and child bells, his consciousness prying into it. The best way to understand a talisman was to use the consciousness to inspect it. When his consciousness entered the copper bells, Zhuemo felt his vision shift and was situated in an empty space. Countless complex and ancient seal scripts swam around him. They seemed to be alive as they spun freely. Even if Zhuemo could be considered to be knowledgeable, his head was dizzy when he saw these seal scripts. Not far from Zhuemo was a round ball about the height of a person. It was made from dense layers of complex seal scripts wrapped together. That was a jinji. How many jinji had people put down over the big ball? Staring at the round ball covered in jinji, Zhuemo suddenly became curious what was being contained inside this round ball. Was the thing inside this round ball of jinji perhaps the crux to controlling these bells? How had the enormous force that had thrown him back been released? These seal scripts? Or what was contained inside? He was a bit uncertain, but he didn't dare to move rashly now. The seal scripts flying in the surroundings were outside of his knowledge of the field. If he accidentally became trapped, he was not certain that he could escape. Withdrawing his consciousness from the copper bells, Zhuemo still felt fear. He couldn't make a good judgment about the grade of this talisman, but it definitely was above 5th grade. His intuition told him that it was very dangerous. Out of caution, Zhuo decided to temporarily put it aside. The old Taoist that he had defeated probably hadn't understood how to use it either. Zhuo's attention then landed on the mountain-shaped blue rock. When he held it, he was very shocked. It was very heavy. This rock that was the size of his palm weighed a terrifying 2,000 caddies. Zhuo instantly became excited. This was another powerful talisman. He couldn't help but examine it. Countless seal characters could be seen on the surface of the mountain. They were as thin as strands of hair, and displayed the extraordinary skill of the forger. Zhuo channeled Ling power into it. On the surface of the blue rock were the words, "Evil subduing," in bright cinnabar. The small mountain quickly grew to a height of 5 zhang. Zhuo's mind moved, his finger pointing upward as he shouted, "Seal!" The mountain suddenly appeared at the location that Zhuo's finger was pointing to and slammed down. Boom! The earth shook, and Zhuo was almost knocked down. The strong air wave carried the dust as it swept past like a twister. The entire camp was alarmed by such a loud noise, and many figures flew towards this place. When everyone saw this blue mountain that was half buried in the ground and the spider web-like cracks radiating outwards, they shouted in shock and were dumbstruck where they stood. "Achem, you can all go. Go. I'm trying out new talismans." Zhuo sent everyone away, ran to the little mountain and stared with intoxication at the cinnabar red words, "Evil subduing," written on the surface. Good treasure, very good treasure. If this dropped down and hit, even a Jindan Xiuzhe would be turned into a pancake. Even if it just brushed past, that would result in a broken limb at least. This evil subduing peak was a 5th grade talisman and Zhuo could not stop caressing it. 5th grade talismans had to have formation techniques. If it was this powerful when used normally, he didn't know what the formation technique would look like. He still put the evil subduing peak back into the ring. The investigation of the formation technique wouldn't be easy and would take a long time. After 2 great talismans, Zhuo's curiosity had been stirred to a peak. He was full of anticipation towards the 3 jade scrolls that remained. Taking out the jade scrolls, he read through them one by one. The first jade scroll recorded the spell that the yellow-robed old Taoist had cultivated, Heavy Earth Spell. It was a rare 6th grade earth element spell. This was astounding to Zhuo. Higher-level spells belonging to the 5 element were very rare in the Kunlun realm, as it was dominated by Sword Xiu. He quickly found the move that the yellow-robed old Taoist had used in Brightwater City. It was called, Heavy Earth Restriction. In an instant, it could manipulate the earth element power under the ground and to produce a restrictive effect. Other than this, it had many other abilities that made Zhuo afraid as he read. If the other had not been careless today, and been trapped in close combat, it was hard to say who would win. Jindan Xiuzhe that were skilled in 5 element spells were completely different than Jindan Sword Xiu. Even though their attacks were not as powerful as Sword Xiu, but their moves had more variation. Zhuo decided that he had to practice the Heavy Earth spell. His talent in the 5 elements wasn't just a bit stronger than his talent in the sword. The second jade scroll made Zhuo's mind jump again. It recorded the imprinting and usage instructions for the evil subduing peak. Zhuo was entranced as he read and was extremely joyful. This evil subduing peak was made from 130,000 caddies of 3rd grade sky blue rock, and was processed hundreds of times to remove the impurities before finally being reduced to 10,000 caddies of the essence. The jade scroll also recorded the formation techniques of the evil subduing peak. The description was so strong that Zhuo's heart itched. Evil subduing peak was a talisman like the Heaven-Turned Seal. These types of talismans usually were powerful, but had all kinds of weaknesses. For example, this evil subduing peak had to be held in the hand of the Xiuzhe to be used. But it was a terrifying 10,000 caddies heavy. Even if it was not activated, it was still 2,000 caddies heavy. Those that had weak bodies did not have the power to use it. The yellow-robed old Taoist had possessed this evil subduing peak for a long time, but due to this restriction, he could only leave it in the corner of his ring. But this was perfect for Zuemo. His great Daimo physique was very strong. Not to mention just 2,000 caddies, even if it was the full 10,000 caddies, he could hold it up. If he also practiced the heavy earth spell, and used the two together, the power would further multiply. The Jade Scroll also recorded how to process it further. Zuemo swept over it and put it back into the ring to start reading the last Jade Scroll. The last Jade Scroll was a Jia map. This Jia map was bigger than the one Zuemo had copied from Rongwei. This shocked Zuemo. He guessed that the yellow-robed old Taoist had gotten this Jia map from somewhere else and this was not charted by himself. There were more than 500 Jia marked on the Jia map, including some Jia that were in very far-away locations. Zuemo seemed to be able to trace the trips the maker of this Jia map had taken through his life. Many of the routes penetrated deep into obscure places. The information written about each Jia were also very detailed. Zuemo couldn't help but feel respect. To have gone to so many places, this Shouja definitely had been very powerful. Following the Jia map, Zuemo read the information on each Jia one by one with interest. When he found an intermediate Jia called Cloud Sea Jia, a note written about it instantly made him freeze where he stood. At the deepest parts of the water cloud sea, it is possible to hunt for water cloud embryo which has the ability to heal and nurture the soul. Water cloud embryo. Zuemo felt overjoyed. The previous talismans and spells could not make him as happy as this piece of information. Water cloud embryo was in Cloud Sea Jie. Cloud Sea Jie. Zuemo's eyes were bright. He instantly found the position of Sky Water Jia and quickly found a route that led to Cloud Sea Jie. This was a very long route. The route passed through 7 intermediate Jia and 26 small Jia. He had never thought there would be a day that he would need to go to so many places. But he had no fear or timidity. He needed to find Water Cloud Embryo and heal Ague. Ague sat silently, Silly Bird, Lil, Pagoda, and the others were surrounding her as they played happily. Ever since Ague had been injured, the terrifying presence around her had disappeared. Silly Bird and the others did not fear her at all, and in reverse, they were very close to her. Lil, Fire liked to roll around on Ague's body, and Lil, Black liked to hang on Ague's hair. Lil, Pagoda liked to circle around Ague. What made Zuemo feel was the least believable was Silly Bird. This bird, for some reason, was extremely good to Ague, and was even willing to let Ague ride her. This was a benefit Zuemo could not even imagine. It might have been a delusion, but Zuemo felt that after having the 4 keep her company, Ague's wooden face seemed to have a hint of life. Zuemo looked at this scene and felt unusually warm. Suyu soullessly returned to the sect. The scene that occurred earlier in the day was still affecting her mind. She had led the 100 Flower Alliance for more than 20 years, and saw every kind of scheme and plan. But it was the first time she had seen such a straightforward and brutish battle. It seemed that she was only suited to behind-the-scene tactics. She smiled mockingly. Sitting down and taking a drink of Ling tea, her spirit sudden felt slightly better. At this time, a female disciple ran in a panic. Sect leader. Not good. Shimmy was killed by Sky Number 1, and he ran away. Suyu smashed her teacup that she had raised to her lips to the ground, her eyes wide as she lectured angrily. What are you standing there for? Go pursue him. You crowd of trash. If you can't get him back, all of you don't need to come back. I do frequently translate on the bus, but when it's crowded, I can't type on the computer, so the phone is my alternative. As all of you have said, Puyao finally gets his golden core. He's really desperate at this point. Doesn't this chapter of Zuemo sighing over talismans bring back memories of being at Wukong Mountain? Zuemo has greatly improved from the guy who couldn't haul his ling grains up the mountain. Cloud Sea Jia was also the place that manufactured the cloud formation silk, the second elder of the outer hall used in battle. Zuemo's plot armor is at work. The map he needed just happened to drop into his lap, after some effort. Chapter 310, The Past Grievances. Shu Long surveyed guard camp and saw everyone was working hard at their cultivation. He couldn't help but have a satisfied expression. He knew very well how lacking their talent and foundation was. Only hard work could make up for their shortcomings. The guard camp was completely made up of Xiu slaves. They had encountered countless hardships, their personalities were resilient and exemplified persistence, and they were very reliable. He would try to fulfill any of Pu Yao's demands, no matter how difficult, and urge the others to meet the demands. Over the span of a few months, the guard camp had comprehended the benefits from the previous breakthrough, and now their overall strength had risen a level. The black armor each person wore was even more exquisite, and their shapes had slowly changed. There were now slight differences on each person's armor. Some were broad, others were slender and symmetrical, just like how people were very strong and others were nimble and speedy. After the preliminary stages of cultivation, they had started to develop in different directions. This was an unavoidable result of the intermediate stages of cultivation. Any kind of spell or mo skill would diverge this way. As the one closest to Pu Yao, Shu Long received the most instruction from Pu Yao. No one could rival his strength in guard camp. Even though he had not sparred against the experts from Sky Peak Platoon, everyone secretly speculated that while Shu Long's strength could not match that of Xie Shan and Ma Fan, he shouldn't be far from Nian Lu and Lei Peng. Everyone underestimated him. Mo skills were dangerous. The slightest carelessness and one's life would end and their soul shattered. However, if one could overcome that, the speed of progression was not anything that the Xiuxia's Ling cultivation or the Yao's spiritual cultivation could rival. Shu Long's entire life had been full of hardship and suffering. These experiences were like fertilizer to the hardship guard mo skills. As a result, his journey of cultivation was smooth and rapid. Even though he was stern about urging everyone to cultivate, but his actual personality was warm and disliked conflict. Cultivating the mo skill had recovered his youth, but his personality had not changed. The laid-back attitude unique to middle-aged people showed itself on his body. The camp that guard camp made was a long and narrow crescent that shielded almost all of the camp. A light suddenly flashed through Shu Long's eyes. He made a hand motion to the camp guard beside him and then walked towards the outside of the camp. Outside the camp was a dense forest. His ears were very sharp and he heard noise in the woods. There seemed to be many people that were approaching them. Dozens of camp guards tightly followed behind him. The camp guards were wary but not nervous. After the Battle of Golden Crow City, especially after how dangerous and difficult the battle was, it was possible to see their improvement. The sound from the woods became increasingly clear. This time, the other camp's guards also detected it. Everyone stared at the woods waiting for the appearance of the unwelcome guests. Whoosh, a person covered in blood came out of the woods. Shu Long was slightly surprised. However, when he saw the face of this person, his pupils suddenly shrank. A one. When the camp guard beside him saw the person, he couldn't help but exclaim. The person covered in blood heard the exclamation. His body shook, and he raised his head in confusion. A one, heavens, is it really you? A one, you are still alive. Everyone was exceptionally excited. They all recognized this youth covered in blood. The eyes of the youth were confused as he looked at this crowd of people dressed in black armor. Even though he did not recognize them, but they gave him a feeling of familiarity. We can talk later. Tian Mu, take a one to the back. Everyone else, prepare for battle. Shu Long's voice was steady and methodical. His handsome face was serene, but a sharp cold light flashed in the deepest part of his eyes. When the youth heard the name, Tian Mu, his entire body shook. He raised his head to look at the large male in black armor in front of him. Tian Mu, big brother Tian Mu. Tian Mu grinned, but it was slightly murderous. Little A one, big brother will help you beat whoever bullies you. A familiar voice and tone allowed the youth to truly believe that this unfamiliar large male in front of him was really big brother Tian Mu. At the end of his strength, the youth fainted in Tian Mu's arms. No one spoke, but threads of black energy came out everyone's armor and wrapped around their legs, waist, and wrists. Looking at Owen's terrible state, there seemed to be a ball of fire burning in everyone's chests. Only Shu Long was motionless without any killing essence coming from his body. Whoosh, whoosh, a crowd of female Shio charged out of the woods. At the same time, a crowd of female Shio appeared in the sky. When the leader of this group of female Shio saw Shu Long, she had a wary look. When she saw Wen in Tian Mu's arms, her gaze became sharp and she said, "Why had Sir taken this Shio slave which has escaped from our sect?" When he saw this female, Shu Long could not control his killing essence any longer. Multiple threads of black energy suddenly shot out of his body like fire and covered his body. He recognized this face. Bai Rufen. Of the females that had been in charge of the Shio slaves, this female's temper had been the worst. Just a little bit of unhappiness and she would vent on the Shio slaves. No less than 50 of Shu Long's fellows had died at her hands. Kill. Shu Long's cold voice disappeared in the air. His figure also disappeared from where he stood. The female disciples of Hundred Flower Alliance never thought the other side would act without even exchanging words. With their guard down they were instantly at a disadvantage. Not just Shu Long, but the other camp guards also recognized the female Shio in front of them and their origins. Each of them had blood-filled eyes as their murderous aura grew. Shu Long suddenly appeared next to Bai Rufen like a ghost. His right hand chopped and a black energy sliced towards Bai Rufen's white face like a blade. At the same time, a thread of black energy flew from the tip of his foot and silently wrapped towards the other's right leg. Bai Rufen paled. The other's first attack was a killing move that did not show any mercy. Panicking, several balls of snowy white plum blossom sword energies came from the flying sword in her hand and shielded her. However, the others were approaching too fast and collided heavily with the sword energies. Bai Rufen was overjoyed, but when she saw the plum blossom sword energies passing through the other's body, her face turned snowy white. Not good, it was an afterimage. Her foot was suddenly in great pain. She didn't even have the time to call out in pain when her neck suddenly hurt. She suddenly felt the world in her vision spin. Then she saw a headless body continuously sprouting fresh blood. The wails echoed. When had the female Shio from the Hundred Flower Alliance ever experienced such a bloody and murderous scene? In the midst of their terror, they lost their lives. In the blink of an eye, corpses covered the ground. The faces of the Hundred Flower Alliance Shouja were all pale. Many people uncontrollably screamed and frantically fled. Shu Long raised his head to look at the sky. He picked up a rock from the ground, his body pulling back like a bow, and threw the rock hard. Hum. A soul-shaking howl suddenly sounded. The piece of rock penetrated a female Shio through the heart and blood sprayed through the air. This female Shio had forgotten to activate her Ling armor as she had been too afraid. Shu Long's throw frightened the other people into fleeing even faster. Shu Long stopped his fellows that were preparing to give chase. The hardship guard, Mo's skill was powerful, but it had a flaw in that it was not good at flight. This weakness would only disappear when they reached a much more profound stage in their cultivation. Returning to the camp, the first thing Shu Long did was to report this incident to Mo. He knew that this incident was very significant. This time, they had severely offended Hundred Flower Alliance, and likely caused the start of a battle against Hundred Flower Alliance. After Mo heard Shu Long's report, he did not give blame, but said, "Was there anyone left alive?" Shu Long stilled. "There is one. Go immediately to find where Hundred Flower Alliance is located." Mo's expression was stern. "We will attack first, we cannot give them the time to recover. Otherwise, we will be in danger." Shu Long was shocked. He had originally assumed that Boss would blame them, but he hadn't expected that Boss didn't assign any of the blame on them, and even decided to attack first. He pressed his lips together and immediately turned around. Gong Sun Cha shook his head. "This is great trouble. The local powers of Bright Water City had been wary of so many of Shouja appearing. Now that they had a conflict with Hundred Flower Alliance, the situation was extremely disadvantageous to them. Nothing to worry about. If we don't give them the time to react and finish the fight fast, we can safely leave before everyone else reacts. Zhuo wasn't concerned. You don't blame them? Gong Sun Cha asked curiously. Shi Xiang's decisiveness was unexpected to him. I don't blame them. Zhuo shook his head, and said in a matter-of-fact voice, Shu Long and the others are our people. They have a deep and bloody grievance against Hundred Flower Alliance. Who do we help? Of course we help Shu Long. Also, the people wrong in this incident isn't Shu Long and the others. If it was me, I would definitely have charged all the way to Hundred Flower Alliance. However, it isn't too late now. The camp started to quickly move. No one panicked. Even the Shouja from the forging division had calm faces. When they had set down camp, everyone had known that this would only be a temporary camp. The majority of their possessions were still on the slave transporting boats, and hadn't been moved to the camp, which now saved them labor. In 2 hours, everyone had boarded the slave transporting boats. The 5 slave transporting boats slowly rose in the sky and flew into the southeastern part of Brightwater City. Such a big action naturally could not be concealed from the eyes of the local powers, and Zhuo didn't plan on concealing it from them. His thought was very simple. With the fastest speed possible, finish the battle. Their grievances with Hundred Flower Alliance could not be resolved. A local power like Hundred Flower Alliance that was well rooted in this place could gather a terrifying amount of support if they had enough time. To the other powers, they were the outsider. Zhuo displayed the decisiveness of a leader. He did not hesitate and decided to attack Hundred Flower Alliance first. Suyu listened to the report with a dark face. She could have never thought this mysterious power was so savage. They had attacked without giving an opportunity to speak, as though they had held a deep hatred. She would never have guessed that the entire guard camp was Shou slaves they had transported to Little Mountain Jie. Now that the two sides had reached such a step, there was no room to negotiate. She was wary of this mysterious troop, but she wasn't afraid. As one of the largest powers in Sky Water Jie, how could Hundred Flower Alliance stand being humiliated so? How many of the elders are in the sect? She turned and asked one of her disciples. Elder Wang, Elder Mei, and Elder Shao are all present, the disciple instantly replied. Su Yu's heart was reassured. Invite them for a discussion. You shall personally go to ask. Chapter 311, At the door. Elders Wang, Mei, and Shao quickly hurried over. What matter has sect leader in such a fuss? This old woman is slightly curious. Elder Mei's voice was piercing. Before she arrived, her voice could first be heard. Elder Mei's face was hideous and her temper was the most explosive. Of the 3 people, she had been the oldest person when she reached Jindan, and her composure was the worst among them. Elder Wang was wearing a blue robe, her face friendly and had a cheerful smile. She looked very friendly and approachable. Elder Zhao's eyes rippled with a seductive look. She was actually even younger than Su Yu, and she was a peerless beauty. Yes. It's rare that sect leader will call all 3 of us together. Has something major happened? Elder Zhao's voice was sweet, endearing and alluring. Elder Wang said warmly, if sect leader has a problem, please tell us. We receive benefits from the sect daily, and won't refuse if it is time for us to help. This disciple thanks the 3 elders. Su Yu bowed gracefully to the 3 elders, her attitude respectful. The biggest reason that she was in charge of Hundred Flower Alliance was that she had the support of the 3 elders. The 3 elders calmly received the bow and did not refuse. After standing up, Su Yu narrated what had happened today. Sky number 1. Based on our sect's tradition, he shouldn't be lower than 6th grade. Elder Shao was slightly surprised. 7th grade, Suyu said and then continued, this Shio slave called Awen is exceptional and of rare innate talent. He first caught our attention when he showed himself in a group of 4th grade Shio slaves. This disciple then put him among a group of 5th grade Shio slaves. In an extremely short amount of time, he outcompete them. Just a while ago, he won out of a group of 6th grade Shio slaves. This disciple had been preparing to send him to elders after some more time. No matter if it is as a slave soldier, or as a living cauldron, it would be very beneficial. Elder Zhao's eyes lit up as she laughed lightly. Jijie cannot steal from me. This Mimi just needs a good cauldron, and I can break through the stage of first stratum. This old one has no interest in Shio slaves, Elder Mei said coldly. Elder Wang smiled and said, then I will wish for Mimi to break through first stratum soon. Maybe Mimi will be the first one among us to first break through to the level of first stratum. Mimi thanks Jijie. Elder Zhao's expression was blissful. But this master of Golden Crow City could grasp old man Shui, he is not to be dismissed, Elder Wang said gravely. What are you afraid of? They really don't want to live. Elder Mei sneered coldly. He should be a body cultivator, the probability of him being a Diana Shio is the highest. At that time, get Xiao Xiao to go. Her sky flower fall is perfect for dealing with those people. Good, good. Elder Xiao laughed prettily as she clapped her hands with a light smile. She was receiving the most benefits this time, and naturally was willing to put in more effort. Do they have any other Jindan? Elder Wang asked. No. This disciples personally saw them, and did not find any other Jindan, Suyu said confidently. Don't even have a Jindan and they dare to be so arrogant, they are looking for death. Elder Mei said hatefully. A disciple suddenly stumbled in. Sect leader. Someone has attacked us, Suyu was suspicious that she had heard it wrong. Someone had attacked them. They dare. Elder Mei was infuriated. This old one will use them to make Dan. As her words landed, she stomped her feet and disappeared. The other 2 elders had unfriendly expressions as they disappeared at the same time. Zuo looked at the mountain valley below. Hundreds of flowers were blooming, red and purple, to form a beautiful sea of flowers. Even in the air, it was possible to smell the fragrance. This place was the base of 100 Flower Alliance, 100 Flower Valley. 100 Flower Valley produced all kinds of valuable Ling flowers. The flower-type talismans and Ling Dan that they forged were deeply liked by female Shio and easy to sell in the market. Zuo was just going to give the order to attack when 3 female Shio suddenly appeared in the air. Jindan. 3 Jindan. Zuo was not surprised by the appearance of Jindan. If an enormous sect did not have several Jindan, that would be a joke. Compared to Little Mountain Jie when he had felt hopeless at the mention of a Jindan, the halo around Jindan had disappeared. Jindan were just Shioja that were slightly more powerful than Ningmai. There was nothing major. After meeting more of them, he could even give a general judgment on how powerful a Jindan was. Unfamiliar the first time, familiar the second. Fighting against Jindan wasn't an exception. Zuo compared the 3 Jindan in front of him with Clear Sky Old Forefather and felt they were very lacking. He couldn't help but sigh inside at the power of Clear Sky Old Forefather. The Jindan that he had successively met were all a far cry from Clear Sky Old Forefather. It seemed that while they were all Jindan, the skill level difference was large. Thinking back to it, the strength of Wukong's sword sect wasn't just strong. Xin Yen Shishu wasn't lacking in power compared to Clear Sky Old Forefather. Suyu quickly appeared behind the 3 elders. When she saw Zuo, she instantly became furious. She shouted harshly, Golden Crow City Master. You have gone too far. To say nothing of stealing this sect's Shio slave, you actually attack our sect? You really think that my 100 Flower Alliance has no one? The three elders didn't know who had come, but when they heard the person in front of them was the master of Golden Crow City, they were all angry. Elder May's temper was the most explosive as she shouted, "You are seeking death. The heaven has a road that you don't walk, hell has no door but you come. Little bastard, if I don't destroy your soul today, this old one isn't called May." Zhuo rolled his eyes. The other was not polite, so he naturally wouldn't be polite. He spat and said scornfully, "Old fart, your mommy is calling you to brush your teeth." Elder May exploded and disappeared in the sky. "This old one will tear your mouth." Woo-woos. More than 10 figures charged towards the empty space in front of Zhuo like sharp arrows. The 15 members of Sky Peak Platoon drew out 15 crisscrossing straight lines like an enormous net which covered the area 30 zhang in front of Zhuo. This enormous net seemed to suddenly explode. Countless sword essences were like multicolored lines that howled with a soul-shaking sound as they filled the holes in the net. 15 different kinds of sword essence filled the multicolored net with a dangerous presence. Elder Wang and Elder Zhao's faces were heavy, and Su Yu's expression changed slightly. Sword essence. 15 Xiuzhe who had comprehended sword essence. In the entire 100 Flower Alliance, other than the elders, there were just 8 people among the disciples that had comprehended sword essence. The other side just sent out 15 people that were all Xiuzhe who comprehended sword essence. Gong Sun Cha's expression was shy, and ignorant of the fact his eyes had turned bright red. He was very excited. Jin Dan. In the battle at Golden Crow City against Clear Sky Old Forefather, the Vermilion Bird camp that he was in command of didn't have any use at all. To Gong Sun Cha, who looked shy on the surface, but was proud inside, it was a great humiliation. Facing a Jin Dan straight on this time, how could he not be excited? The moment the large net took form, his eyes suddenly narrowed and flashed with the light of the hunter closing the next. He quickly spat out 2 words. Second Division. Elder May charged headfirst into this enormous net. While these sword essence could not form tangible danger to her, they still put her in her sorry state. She had been somewhat careless and did not activate her Ling armor. When she found where she stood was filled with sword energies, she finally activated the Ling shield. Pia Pia Pia. 3 sword energies struck her Ling shield. The shield only shook slightly, but her expression was very terrible. She felt she had lost face. Anger exploding, she screamed piercingly, and a plum branch appeared in her hand. This glistening plum was about 3 chi in length. It was old and flexible, the flowers on the branches were in full bloom. Elder May waved it slightly. The tender petals left the plum tree and flew with the wind. In a moment, the plum flowers rained down and managed to cover all of Sky Peak Platoon. It was a dreamy realm of flowers, but a sharp sound howled. Like the tide, the beautiful flower petals became shrap. Every petal contained sharp sword essence. The dream realm instantly became hell. It was Elder May's killing move, Plum Sacrifice. Elder Zhao's eyes flashed as she laughed prettily. Mei Jijie really is going overboard. What reason is there to use a killing move just as the fight is starting? We can't even get a drink of soup. Elder Wang praised, Elder Mai's sword essence has become purer. This, Plum Sacrifice, is multiple times stronger than last time. Su Yu was entranced. As Elder May attacked, the other side instantly disappeared in this beautiful yet treacherous flower sea. The people of Sky Peak Platoon knew the danger. Their expressions changing, everyone retreated. Flee. Not so simple. Elder May felt unspeakably good as she said hatefully. The spell on her hands changed again. Her mind suddenly stuttered, a feeling of danger rising. She instantly was shocked. At this time, the air around her suddenly shook lightly, the sky full of flowers imperceptibly paused. At some unknown time, a troop had charged to within 30 zhang of her. Such fast speed. Her eyes shrank. The other came quickly like a shining blade that made her feel that she could not stand under its sharpness. Elder May was suddenly enraged. The other side was just a charge of more than 100 people, yet she actually had felt fear. It was too embarrassing. As she turned the plum tree in her palm, the sky full of falling flowers seemed to be carried by the wind to move towards the troop coming towards her. The sharp flower petals were like soul snatchers, and the wind pillar that carried them was undoubtedly a meat grinder. "This fight is over," Elder Wang said lightly. Even if she was the one facing Elder May's move, she would not be able to escape without injury. Both Su Yu and Elder Xiao did not doubt her words. Yet what they never had thought was the other side did not retreat but charged straight at Elder May. Wei Ran felt the battle intent in his body had reached a peak, and his speed had risen to a peak. In order to increase their speed to the maximum, Lil Miss had arranged a position near the back for them. Facing the meat-grinding pillar of wind, Wei Ran showed no fear. Every Shouja of Vermilion Bird Camp believed that when their speed was at maximum, when they completed their charge, no enemy could stop them. This wasn't something that Lil Miss forced onto them, but a belief born from multiple battles. Wei Ran raised the flying sword in his hand. His fellows raised the flying sword in their hands at the same time. He suddenly glared angrily, and shouted, "100 kill." The flying sword in his hand sliced forward with all his power. Everyone in 2nd Division shouted at the same time, "100 kill." The flying sword in their hands sliced forward with all their power. The sword energies were like streams meeting at the sea, 100 swords becoming one. A gigantic sword energy 3 zhang wide rang deeply as it flashed blindingly and collided with the pillar of wind. Chapter 312, Zhuo Mo's Fury Boom. Everyone's vision flashed, the burning light stabbing people's eyes to the point they couldn't remain open. Elder May's sleeves were torn, her hair loose, and a thin stream of blood was coming out the corner of her mouth. She looked in terror at the group of more than 100 people in front of her. What sword scripture was this? She had seen sword scriptures that were combined in an attack together before, but she had never heard of sword scripture that combined attacks of more than 100 people, much less seen it with her eyes. Combined sword scripture attacks demanded high cooperation between the Shouja. The more people there were, the less likely it was that it would succeed. A combined sword scripture attack of more than 100 people was something that could not be imagined. As a Jindan, she could only retreat when facing such a terrifying blow. Looking at the troop that was slightly disorganized in front of her, it was like she had seen a ghost. Wei Ran's body was empty of power. Not just him, but every one of his fellows were panting heavily. But every person's face was filled with battle intent and pride. Jindan, so what? Wei Ran was so excited he wanted to howl. To wound a Jindan with one blow. This was something they would never even dare to think about in the past, but it happened right in front of their eyes now. But he forcibly suppressed the excitement and battle tremors inside. He had not forgotten his duty. Scatter. Like a tide, the Shouja of 2nd Division suddenly divided down the middle. Elder May was shocked and uncertain, but when her gaze landed on the passageway made by the opening, her expression changed dramatically. A light and deep vibrating sound was like the deep bark of an ancient beast. Another 100 people. A charge just like the previous one. Elder Wang and Elder Zhao's complexions changed. Elder May was in danger. The two did not dare to be careless. The mysterious master of Golden Crow City had subordinates of such power. Just a short exchange, but it was coordinated and flawless. From the beginning, Elder May had landed in the other's formation. The enormous sword energy net made by the 15 Shouja that comprehended sword essence had only one goal: slow down Elder May. A Jindan that lost their speed instantly became fragile when facing a strong troop that could complete a combined sword scripture attack of over 100 people. The two also found to their shock that the master of Golden Crow City didn't just have this one troop under his command. Also, the other didn't give Elder May any chance to breathe. Their attacks were like waves, one wave after another. If this continued, Elder May would become a fish on the other's chopping block. The two understood the dangers of the situation. At this time, they couldn't attend to anything else, but leapt over. They only needed to create a chance for Elder May to breath, and the scales of battle would become balanced again. Kill! A cold and slightly old voice suddenly rang beside Elder Wang's ears. A feeling of danger floated onto her mind. She was very shocked, her figure disappearing from her spot. A black snake the thickness of a water barrel viciously swept across the position she had just been at. Elder Wang looked gravely at the troop that had ambushed her. A slave-transporting boat's deck was filled with standing black-armored Shouja. Heavy armor Shouja. Puzzlement floated into her mind. The clumsy heavy armor had long been eliminated by history. She felt it was incomprehensible that a heavy armor troop had appeared in front of her. However, she was not careless. The thick black snakes coiling above their heads made her sense danger. Darkness, killing, sharpness. Her gaze landed on the young black-armored Shouja at the very front. She could feel the battle intent in the other's eyes, and killing intent that was so thick it could not be resolved. Suemo stopped Elder Shao. He, handsome guy, why have you stopped me? Elder Shao laughed prettily. The snowy and fine hand lightly covered the warm and red lips, and was unspeakably seductive. Suemo became super alert. His attitude might have been relaxed when he had been swearing back at Elder May, but when he truly faced a Jin Dan, he still felt slightly nervous. He didn't say anything, but stared tightly at the other. Different to earlier, any speech was useless. If you keep looking me, I will be embarrassed. Elder Zhao's eyes moved with allure. Suemo did not react, but he didn't understand. If it was something like swearing at each other, he could understand. But did the woman have some scheme to be talking like this? He became increasingly wary. He didn't waste words, one hand pulling and the other drawing. Two young fiendish hard lightning bolts left his hands. You are so harsh to attack me. If I get wounded, could you bear it? The sweet and seductive voice floated in the air. Elder Zhao's exceptional body flickered in and out of view in the air. The snowy and smooth skin, the high twin peaks, the eyes, they all unconsciously attracted all attention. Suemo was puzzled. Could bear it? Why couldn't he bear it? The hard lightning on his hands continued to bomb towards the other like rain. With a pretty bell-like laugh left behind in the air, Elder Zhao's figure was flickering in the air. The air seemed to have a new addition of a sweetly fragrant and tempting smell. Suemo had a headache. The other's movement method was very powerful. He couldn't even touch the other's clothing. The sweetness in the air entered Suemo's nose. He suddenly felt strangely heated and frantic. The speed of the hard lightning increased, but no matter how fast they were, no hard lightning could even brush the other. He did not notice that a blush had unknowingly came onto his cheeks. But Elder Shao noticed it, and she rejoiced inside. Her expression became even more seductive, and her movements even more tempting. The air became even more heated. But at this time, she heard a second grunt from Elder May. Her heart shook. She knew if she could not finish the battle quickly, Elder May would die today. Also, to capture the bandits, first capture the leader. If she could capture the master of Golden Crow City, this fight would be finished, and no one could fight against them for Sky Number 1. Thinking about this, she could not stop herself. She giggled, little villain, come get close to Jie. The snake-like waist lightly twisted, the clothing on her body flew like flower petals. But her expression held an unusual sincerity. Sky flower fall. An unknown length of time later. It was like waking up from a long dream. Where was this? Suemo opened his eyes and examined the surroundings. Countless flower petals were falling down. Among the rain of flowers, beautiful bodies flickered out of view. Some were lazy, others innocent. They were all beautiful. Every moment and every look could stir the most basic desire of a person. The scene in front of him was so real that one could not take themselves away. Boss. They walked in front of Zuemo, and bowed to Zuemo. The curvaceous bodies revealed large patches of snowy white of the front chest, and made one have the impulse to reach into it. Where is this? Zuemo instinctively asked. The females all had puzzled expressions. One of the females stood out. Boss, this is your home. At this time, Zuemo finally noticed the floor under his feet was completed tiled in Jingshi. Not just so, the yard, the benches, and the pond were all made from Jingshi. Clitter-clatter ran from the pond, it was all Jingshi inside. The entire yard was made from Jingshi. So much Jingshi. Zuemo's heart had never been so satisfied. Was this really his home? Boss, let this servant serve you. A servant said with embarrassment. The tight long dress revealed all of her body. What made Zuemo want to spit blood was that the dress had a slit up to her waist and the inside was tantalizing. He, let us serve you. The females in the surroundings giggled and came up to help Zuemo change clothes. Zuemo jumped in fright. What were they doing? Why did they have to take off his clothes? Seeing the situation, the females giggled even more. Boss is embarrassed. Yes. It's so cute. Then we can undress first. N. As Zuemo gaped, the females untied their dresses and revealed their perfect bodies, and looked with embarrassment or seductiveness at Zuemo. It was enough for one to spit blood. Zuemo felt his nose heat up, but he suddenly seemed to feel the scene in front of him was slightly familiar. He seemed to have seen it before. Oh, where had he seen it before? As he thought, Zuemo's body suddenly froze as though he was hit with a bolt of lightning. In an instant, his face was a mix of green and red. He was furious, swearing as he pointed at the females' illusory formations. You group of illusory formations. He finally remembered where he had seen this before. Wukong Mountain, the pink paper crane. That damned pink paper crane had once used a similar move against him, but he had seen through it then. An illusory formation that was almost the exact same. The anger inside erupted. In the past, the paper crane female had did that to Ji. Ji couldn't defeat her, Ji endured it. You dare to use this move to trick Ji? Gu won't tolerate it. The new grievance and the old hate mixed together, especially when Zuemo recalled his sorry state in the past, the anger in his heart burned even brighter. Gu hates illusory formations the most. Zuemo gritted his teeth and brimmed with killing intent. Pia. The naked beauties in front of him suddenly turned into balls of smoke. Before he could react, everything around him exploded into smoke. Inside the thick smoke was Zuemo's tragic wail, Jingshi. My Jingshi. The scenery around him changed and Zuemo seemed to wake from a dream. Air, he was still in the air, empty air. Zuemo's eyes instantly turned red. He felt his heart was dripping blood. Jingshi, so much Jingshi, all gone. He, who had felt so rich just, now felt great sorrow rise in his heart and stimulate him. If it was said that illusory formations made him remember his tragic previous days, and made him feel fury, then losing so much Jingshi suddenly could not simply be described by fury. Grievance. Deep hatred. Hatred that one side could not survive. Blood seeped out of Elder Zhao's mouth. Skyflower Fall was invisible as it corroded the mind and was wondrous in its powerful, but if it was broken, her mind would be heavily wounded. Even more importantly, she still did not understand how the master of Golden Crow City had recognized and broken Skyflower Fall. The Skyflower Fall, that had never failed before, was defeated at the hands of a Ningmai youth. She still could not believe it now. This wasn't possible. Zuemo did not care for the shock and puzzlement the other felt. His eyes were filled with blood and his shout like thunder. Give all the Jingshi back to me. The first transformation of the Great Day Mo physique suddenly materialized. Chapter 313, Serpent Transformation. A blurry golden shadow appeared behind Zuomo's back. The shadow had a very indistinct shape. It was like an enormous golden cloud that moved behind Zuomo's body. What was that? Elder Xiao was filled with uncertainty, and she felt the youth in front of her was filled with strangeness. Skyflower Fall was based on appearances and was completely the opposite of normal illusory formations. Normal illusory formations used external forces to shake the mind of shoujo, while Skyflower Fall woke the innate desires of the shoujo. A Diana shows Samadhi gave them strong minds, and the possibility of them being enchanted was much lower than other shoujo. But benefits always came with disadvantages. Diana Shio had strong minds, but their convictions also had to be strong as well. Spells like Skyflower Fall exploited this and were amazingly effective against them. Only when the Diana Shio could cultivate to the higher stage of great freedom and let go of their convictions would spells like Skyflower Fall lose their effect. But the stage of great freedom was a very profound level. The Diana Shio which reached such a level would all be great powers, and wouldn't appear in a little place like Sky Water Jia, much less a Ningmai 20-something-year-old youth reaching such a level. The Skyflower Fall that had never failed before had been ineffective. Under the backlash of the illusion, her mind was injured. Up until now, she still did not know how Zuo had seen through it, and what that, return all the Jingshi to me, meant. Also, this indistinct cloud was eerie and mysterious. A strong feeling of danger made her heart beat rapidly. Her knowledge naturally wasn't ordinary for her to have cultivated to Jindan, but she had never heard of such a strange and weird golden shadow before. The golden shadow moved as though it was alive. In the blink of an eye, it collapsed towards its center and rapidly shrank. A pair of half-transparent golden wings appeared on Zuomo's back. Great Day Mo Physique, First Transformation, Light Void Wings. The guard camp that Shu Long was leading was engaged in heavy combat with Elder Wang at this time. Elder Wang learned from Elder Mei's example and continuously changed her position to maintain the initiative. However, Shu Long wasn't dumb and did not attack first. He securely held his position to cut off any opportunity for Elder Wang to give aid to Elder Mei. The Crow Fiend Mo Kill formation was in motion. After breaking through last time, the little Mo Kill could be used with ease. Threads of black energy turned to thick chains that formed an enormous net to block the path of Elder Wang. This way, no one could gain an advantage over the other. 100 kill. The shouts of 100 people shook like thunder. A gigantic sword and the flower petal wind collided. Elder Mei suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. 2 branches on the plum branch in her hand snapped. The tree was filled with cracks and only had 5 branches left. The Ling power of Elder Mei was almost running out of her control and boiled like water. The other side did not give her any chance to recover. The deep sound sounded at her ears like a nightmare again. Elder Wang's expression was heavy, the warmth it usually held had disappeared and was replaced by killing intent. She knew that she could not keep tangling with this group of people. Elder Mei had reached the end of her strength, and did not have the power to even continue for 15 minutes. A thread of regret came into her heart. The power of the Master of Golden Crow City was much stronger than they had imagined. Before today, they had never thought there would be a day where they would be left so disheveled and sorry-looking due to a group of Ningmai. It was just a group of Ningmai. No matter how high their numbers, they never even considered Ningmai as a serious threat. From the moment they became Jindan, they had the qualifications to look down at Ningmai. This conviction was shattered by the cruel reality of today. At this moment, she did not hope for victory, but only hoped that the 3 of them could survive. As long as the 3 of them could survive, the 100 Flower Alliance would continue to exist. If the 3 of them were no longer here, even if the Master of Golden Crow City did not deal the final blow, the other powers of Bright Water City would swallow 100 Flower Alliance. Shu Long looked coldly at the other. He knew the other was going to go all out. He did not feel any fear, even though the other was a Jindan. They were the cause of this battle. They had more reason than any other person to put their lives on the line. Xiao slavery had existed for a long time, and was common in every jie. Shu Long knew this reality. He was not so delusional as to hope that Darren could save all the Xiao slaves and change the situation. That was not realistic. Darren had not blamed them, and even took everyone to attack 100 Flower Alliance. Shu Long decided to put his life on the line. It wasn't just for a one, but more for themselves, and himself. He didn't feel any fear at the others' decision to go all out, but felt slightly excited. Elder Wang took out a Begonia Palace lantern. A blue-white flame lightly jumped inside the lantern. As the Begonia Palace lantern was taken out, the air around it paused for a short moment. After a while, an even more strange scene occurred. The air around Elder Wang started to jump in rhythm with the pulsing of the blue-white flame. Elder Wang's figure started to blur in the air. Shu Long's pupils imperceptibly shrank. This Begonia Palace lantern was a powerful talisman. He raised his right hand covered in black armor. His right hand was completely enveloped in a ball of thick black energy. As the wind blew past, the black energy flickered like a wisp of flame. The people of guard camp silently raised their right hands. A ball of thick black energy encased everyone's right hand. The black snakes that coiled above their heads suddenly shattered and turned to tiny threads of black energy. These black energies gathered together with astounding speed and formed a black snake 100 zhang long. The body of this black snake was completely tangible, with all of its muscles and scales intact as though it was alive. The red snake pupils did not hold emotions. It opened its maw and bared its white fangs as it breathed in. The black fire in the sky and the black energies that encased Shu Long and the others' right hands were sucked into the sky and into the black snake's mouth. Woo-ha! The deep long wail was like an invisible wind that swept in all directions. Having absorbed the black fire, the black snake quickly transformed. 2 bumps formed on its forehead. The snake's pupils became even sharper, the scales even blacker and shinier, and the presence even more astonishing. Elder Wang was even more shocked. This black armor troop had very strange battle methods and was completely different from any type of shouja she had seen before. But she recognized the change in the black snake, serpent transformation. Snakes and serpents had an innate difference, and that was also true of their strength. This black snake that had not finished its transformation into a serpent still exuded a completely superior strength than just a moment ago. Its pupils seemed able to drain away all warmth. Elder Wang's heart tightened. Waves of warmth came from the Begonia Palace lantern. Her heart eased slightly. Yes, the black snake was astonishing, but the Begonia Palace lantern in her hand was not ordinary. She was skilled in forging and especially skilled in making all kinds of flower lanterns. This hexagonal Begonia Palace lantern was her masterpiece. The begonias used in the lantern were 6th grade sky heart begonias, one of the best types of begonias in the world. The rarest was the blue-white flame inside the palace lantern. It came from the center of a 10,000-year blue fire bamboo. It was called Blue Heart Bamboo Flame, and was a rare specimen among 4th grade fires. Without another word, she raised the Begonia Palace lantern in her hand and chanted in a low voice. The petals of the Begonia Palace lantern fell off and flew into the sky. It seemed that there was an endless amount of flower petals, yet the lantern did not change at all. The begonia flower petals danced in the sky. In the blink of an eye, the sky was full of flower petals like a dream. Compared to the plum blossoms of Elder May, the number of begonia flower petals were even more amazing. There seemed to be no end. All of 100 Flower Valley was covered within it. The black snake ignored the rain of flower petals. The black body coiled as its red pupils coldly stared at Elder Wang. The flame of the Begonia Palace lantern suddenly jumped. Boom, the flower petals in the sky simultaneously started to burn. Countless blue-white flames danced in the sky. Blue Heart Bamboo Flame. BZZZT. A bloom of blue heart bamboo flame landed on the shiny body of the black snake, bounced twice, and was extinguished. The black snake did not seem to detect it. Elder Wang's expression changed. The blue heart bamboo flame was actually ineffective. The blue heart bamboo flame, which could burn through everything, could not even leave a mark on the body of the black snake. The icy eyes of the black snake had no emotion. It was made from pure and sharp killing essence. Was it something a measly blue heart bamboo flame could damage? Light flashed through Shu Long's eyes. He shouted in a low tone, "Kill!" The pupils of the black snake suddenly opened, its enormous body twisting and jumping to charge at Elder Wang. Elder Wang was shocked and hurriedly spun the Begonia Palace lantern in her hand. Countless blooms of blue heart bamboo flame blew towards the black snake. Pia pia pia. The sounds were like the popping of beans. Each of the blue heart bamboo flames were the size of a thumb, but its was unexpectedly strong. The enormous body of the black snake was forced to bend down. Elder Wang released a breath. It was good as long as there was a way to stop the other. She channeled her Ling power furiously, and countless flower petals flew into the air. However, the flower petals this time were not tender and weak like they were with the last attack. They were like the sharpest blades with a keen sword essence as they swam around the body of the black snake. Pew pew pew. Scratches appeared on the black snake's shiny body. The black snake felt pain and furiously twisted its body. Yet the blue heart bamboo flame was endless as it bombed the black snake with no signs of ending. A fine layer of sweat appeared on Shu Long's head. His expression was calm, but he was unusually furious. A moment of carelessness, and the other had taken the advantage. How could he tolerate being suppressed? So what if the talisman was powerful? A cold energy flashed through his eyes. Little Mo kill. The black snake suddenly collapsed and turned to a ball of black energy. The center of the black energy spun rapidly. The blue heart bamboo flame and the begonia sword essence covering the sky seemed to be attracted by an invisible force, and uncontrollably flew towards the spinning black energy. Elder Wang's expression changed dramatically. The suction of the spinning black energy was shocking. The blue heart bamboo flame and the begonia sword essence furiously flew towards the black energy whirlpool. What terrified her was that this black energy whirlpool was like a monster that could consume everything. It had not changed at all after so much blue heart bamboo flame and begonia sword essences had flown in. The situation was becoming increasingly worse. A sharp look came into her eyes. She snorted coldly. For the first time, the Begonia Palace lantern left her hand and flew into the sky. Chapter 314, Successive Mo kill 4th grade talismans and above generally had formation techniques that accompanied them, and as the grade increased, the number of formation techniques a talisman possessed would also increase. For example, the majority of 4th grade talismans had only one formation technique. Only the finest of 4th grade talismans would have 2 formation techniques. 5th grade talismans would have between 2 to 4 formation techniques, and 6th grade talismans would have between 4 to 6 formation techniques. The formation techniques could utilize the talisman's power to its maximum potential. Each additional formation technique was one more killing move. No one would scorn having more killing moves. At this time, Elder Wang understood that normal attacks would be ineffective against the people in front of her. How long has it been since she used a killing move? Elder Wang's thoughts wandered. After she had cultivated to Jin Dan, she concentrated on her study of forging, and never fought again. She had never expected the first battle for her as a Jin Dan would result in her being pushed to such a dangerous position. Gathering her thoughts, the Begonia Palace lantern in the sky slowly revolved. Each flower petal flashed with a glowing light. The pulsing blue heart bamboo flame was like a heart and stirred the Ling energy in the surrounding area to pulse with it. Zhuo Mo's consciousness was the largest and he was the first to detect the abnormality. He couldn't help but feel shocked. This Begonia Palace lantern was definitely not below the 6th grade. The power of a 6th grade talisman in the hands of a Jindan would be terrifying. Elder Xiao also detected it. She was very stunned. Elder Wang was going all out. For some reason, when she knew that Elder Wang was going all out, she didn't feel any excitement, but felt fear instead. The pressure that the youth with the half-transparent golden wings gave her seemed to increase in that moment. Zuoimo sensitively detected that Elder Zhao's attention wavered. An opportunity. Light flashed through his eyes and his body disappeared. Elder Zhao's heart suddenly jumped, the pink flying sword in her hand rising. Multiple sword energy shields appeared in the space beside her. Before she saw the results, she retreated, but the feeling of danger suddenly rose. Out of shock, her flying sword sliced towards her back. Ping! An enormous force drove into her from the flying sword. Her entire right arm went numb, and her flying sword was ripped from her hand. She bit down on her lips. Not daring to stop at all, her figure successively flashed. A cold essence flashed behind her back, and carried a spray of blood with it. She panted heavily, and looked with astonishment at the youth in the distance. The back of her right hand was bleeding, and there was a curved wound on her back. She had been wounded twice by a Ningmai's attack. She looked at Zuoimo as though she was looking at a monster. Her gaze landed on the half-transparent golden wings on Zuoimo's back and furiously trying to determine what kind of abhina it was. What Diana Xiu cultivated was abhina, and in her view, the wings should be a kind of abhina. With such a wondrous abhina, this youth's origins were not ordinary. They really encountered a great foe today. Zuoimo felt his entire body filled with great strength that was so abundant he wanted to groan. The great Daimo physique really lived up to the rumors. At this time, Zuoimo finally experienced that only the transformations of a Mo physique could truly express the true power of the Mo physique. The light void wings on his back seemed to be rooted inside his body. There were no actual changes inside his body, but many of his muscles, blood, and bones seemed to wake from their slumber. The abundant power did not come from the light void wings but from the depths of his body. Powerful. The power that woke shook inside his body and almost forced his body to explode. In this moment, Zuoimo comprehended some of the true meaning of Mo physique cultivation. The body was like a treasure cave, one that was unfathomable in its depths. But in the great majority of time, this treasure cave was dormant. The Mo physique was like a vessel that continuously matured, and developed to become increasingly more powerful, and so the power that was activated and released was greater. Looking at Elder Xiao who was just barely hanging on, Zuoimo was suddenly filled with confidence that came from great strength. Facing a Jindan, he was not helpless anymore. Glancing at the Begonia Palace lantern igniting in the sky, he decided to end the battle as quickly as possible. The light void wings on his back lightly flapped. A strong force passed over, and his body disappeared in the air again. In the sky, the Begonia Palace lantern started to burn into a ball of blue-white fire and pulsed in a unique beat. Elder Wang chanted lowly, "Blue Heart Begonia Sea." Boom! The empty sky seemed like dry tinder suddenly caught fire. In an instant, the flames spread and the sky above Elder Wang turned to a sea of fire. The blue-white sea of flames covered the sky. Shu Long raised his face upwards. The sunlight was blocked by the sea of fire, and a large shadow landed on his face. Looking at the vast sea of flame, one couldn't help but feel awe. The blue-white sea of fire furiously burned as it spread. Countless threads of blue-white fire fell from the sky like tens of thousands of blue-white hands of fire that shot at the 5 slave-transporting boats. The faces of people on the boats, like the forging division, all changed. The furious sea of fire above their head covered everything and felt unavoidable. Only Shu Long and his fellows stood motionless and steady as rocks. But the battle intent in their hearts was stirred by the sky full of fire. The black energy around them became denser. The roiling black energy above their heads formed a snake again. The enormous snake was not lacking compared to the sea of flame. At the same time, Shu Long raised his left hand, the left hand that was covered in black energy. Every person in guard camp raised their left hand that was covered in black energy. The black snake opened its large mouth and sucked with a hiss. The black energy was like fire, and its sparks left their hands and raced into the sky. The blue-white flame came from the sky, just like the fire-like black energy rising up against the flow. Between these white and black flames was a colossal black snake. The scene was filled with power. It was like an invisible hand tightly gripped everyone's hearts. The people on the slave transporting boats dazedly raised their heads in silence. In this moment, they forgot their terror. The dots of black fire in the sky rapidly landed in the mouth of the black snake. The maw of the black snake was like a bottomless pit, and cleanly absorbed every bit of black energy that rose into the sky. The black energy around Shu Long and the others was now much fainter. The sheen on their black armor was much dimmer. The black snake's cold pupils showed slight pain. The two bumps on its forehead bulged like something inside was moving, and wanted to burst out. A light suddenly exploded out of the black snake's pupils as it shrieked. Woo-ha! The lines of fire landing from the sky suddenly paused and could not progress any further. There seemed to be an invisible wall between the black snake and the white sea of fire that forcibly stopped the tens of thousands of threads of blue-white fire. Elder Wang's expression changed. She did not notice that she had bitten through her lips and blood was dripping. She had been pushed into a hopeless situation. Even her retreat had been unknowingly sealed shut. If she chose to retreat now, the sea of flames in the sky would explode, and it would be difficult to escape death. Pia, the hairpin in her hair broke. Her long hair fell down and was blown by the wind in a tangle like demons dancing. She did not hesitate. Her last thread of Ling power was thrown crazily into the sea of fire. Fire-born begonia. The sea of fire changed again. Blue begonias grew out of the sea of fire, bloomed, and withered. The withered flower petals landed in the sea of fire and turned to dust. The sea of fire suddenly collapsed and concentrated towards its center. All of the Ling energy in the entire 100-flower valley was pulled in. The Ling flowers that were planted throughout the valley felt this enormous pulling force and left their branches to gravitate to the sea of fire. Suyu saw this and her heart bled. These Ling flowers were the most important source of Jingshi for 100-flower alliance. They were all destroyed today. It wouldn't be possible to recover without 20 years of work. After this battle, no matter if they obtained victory or were defeated, 100-flower alliance's power would plummet, and it was likely they wouldn't even be able to hold on to 100-flower valley. Should we go help guard camp? A thread of terror flashed across Zhong Ru's eyes. Even he, who had very good composure, felt his heart beat wildly at the sea of fire in the sky. Gong Sun Cha smiled. Don't worry. Shu Long and the others aren't weak. Even though Xixiang had never told him who was in charge of guard camp, he knew. When would it ever be his turn to worry about the mysterious person that could annihilate him in war chess? Even he was curious just how strong the guard camp was. Gong Sun Cha suppressed his curiosity and his eyes returned to the battlefield he was responsible for. Looking at Vermilion Bird Camp charge the other side in waves, a furious battle intent came into his eyes. Even if it was that mysterious person that could exterminate him in war chess, he wouldn't willingly admit defeat. Their fight had moved from war chess into reality. Was there anything that could excite him more? It may have been the excitement that caused 2 patches of red to float on his face. This made him look even more shy and bashful. Close the net. The sea of fire was changing, and the black snake in the sky had also reached the most crucial time of its transformation. The 2 bumps on its forehead continuously grew like 2 enormous blisters. Woo-ha! The black snake gave a painful shriek again. The mountain-like body furiously twisted. Everywhere it swept, it created soul-shaking vibrations. Pew! The skin above the bumps on its forehead finally broke. 2 black horns that seemed like dry wood burst out. The 2 black horns continued to grow until they were about 2 chi when they finally stopped. Serpent transformation. This black snake finally completed its most important transformation. Today onwards, it would be called the Black Serpent. A terrifying presence swept across the sky like a hard wind. Everyone, including those on Zhuo side and the 100 Flower Alliance's side, froze in their movements. The only person that was not affected was Zhuo. The light void wings on his back shook, and resolved this shocking presence. But Zhuo was also shocked by the powerful presence of the Black Serpent. The 20 zhang long serpent body swam with ease in the air. The pair of pupils were not icy like they were in the past, but were dignified and proud, as well as immeasurably deep. It raised its serpent head. The sea of fire in the air turned to an enormous fire begonia. The begonia faced the Black Serpent and slowly turned. A hint of mirth came onto Shu Long's face. The black energy on his body was much fainter and caused his slightly smile to look slightly fragile. The other camp guards were pale, but their faces were overjoyed. They had successfully cultivated to the second stage of the Crow Fiend Mo Kill Formation. The second kill of the Crow Fiend Mo Kill Formation, successive Mo Kill. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.